Chapter 545. The advantage of making love was that it was just passing through the clouds. Soon, there were water stains on the road, reflecting the bright sunshine. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was not so hot. After leaving the shopping mall, Xue Xiao held Su Jiai's hand. This time, he took the initiative. They didn't speak. It was like they always held hands on the way home after the evening self-study many years ago. It was either cloudy, Qingtian, windy, or rainy. Su Jiai suddenly said, "It's not a kiss between lovers." Xue Xiao smiled. "I understand." Su Jiai seemed to be more mature than him, both in the past and now. He and she had their own stories in the past 11 years. Xue Xiao thought, Su Jiai's stories are probably more exciting than his. She must be able to find many exciting stories. She was such an active girl. Perhaps in a certain summer or winter in the 11 years, she would also take the initiative to invite someone to treat her to something. Just like many years ago, she asked him to give her a piece of cake in the evening of the winter vacation. She just asked if they could catch up with time, but she didn't mean if they could go back to the past. This path that they had walked hand in hand, he was chasing a dream of his youth. Immature, persistent, and once accompanied by painful dreams. They didn't go back to the hotel, but sat at the bus stop for a long time. Xue Xiao said they were not so stupid before. But Su Jiai leaned on his shoulder and said, "You're the real fool. You're so stupid." It was undeniable that Xue Xiao enjoyed this feeling very much. It was like a continuation of the dream. But he knew it was just a short time. Perhaps she knew it. So this time, he took the initiative to say, "Next time, I'll introduce my fiancé to you." Su Jiai thought for a while and said, "Fortunately, you didn't invite me to your wedding, or I would cry." Xue Xiao suddenly said, "Do you want to come to my wedding?" Su Jiai pinched Xue Xiao's ears forcefully and pouted, "No, absolutely no." Xue Xiao laughed. He was teasing her this time. Su Jiai rubbed Xue Xiao's ears, saying softly, "But if it's my wedding, I'll invite you and you have to come and give me your best blessings." Xue Xiao said, "It's also cruel to a man." Su Jiai suddenly asked, "Don't you want to go back to your place?" Xue Xiao's eyes were fixed on the night sky. He nodded silently and said he wanted to go back. He didn't ask her why she disappeared without a trace. Because it felt like it was no longer necessary. Su Jiai said, "Do you want to eat another cake Xue Xiao's way? Beginning and end." That night, Xue Xiao had a good sleep and had a beautiful dream. In his dream, he seemed to have returned to the age of 17. He held the girl's hand and sat on the beach to watch the sunset. Xue Xiao and Xue asked at the front desk of the hotel and was told that she had checked out early in the morning. Xue Xiao thought it was a good idea to end it here. According to the schedule, he would leave tomorrow. But his work had been postponed for 2 days because of his delay. So he had to spend his time meeting guests. He had to meet local businessmen, hold a small meeting with the branch, and be reprimanded by the head of the company, who asked him to delay for 2 days. "I'll be back tomorrow around noon. Are you tired these days?" He called Wan Zishan in the evening. It was a long call that could sleep with him. Just like how he would serve and mix the coffee subconsciously, the woman on the other side of the phone had already become a part of his life. It was the most important part of his life in the future. He boarded the plane back. Wan Zishan came to pick him up at the airport. He was exhausted but felt good to be back. "What's wrong? You look happy after a business trip." Xue Xiao thought for a while and said, "Because I feel that I love you more." Wan Zishan gave a start and rolled her eyes at Xue Xiao. But she was happy. But she didn't say it. "Don't talk nonsense here. The dress has been changed. Let's pick it up before going home. Are you able to take it?" "Yes, I'll take a nap in the car." Xue Xiao shrugged. "But why is it still raining? Hasn't it stopped?" "It stopped for a day in between. Then it started raining again." Wan Zishan said, but the weather forecast says that it will be Qingtian the day after tomorrow. Shui Xiao carried his luggage and got in the car. Wan Zishan drove and he fell asleep soon. It took more than an hour to get to the wedding dress shop from the airport. Shui Xiao was in a deep sleep. Wan Zishan woke him up when they arrived. Shui Xiao yawned and got off the car. But he was stunned and looked at the opposite side of the road. This tree hasn't been cut down? Wan Zishan glanced at it and thought, maybe it's not easy to do homework because it's raining, so it's put aside. But a lot of leaves fell off and they didn't clean it up. Shui Xiao looked at it thoughtfully for a while. Many of the treasured archives that were hanging on the wishing tree had been scraped off. He didn't know if the one he had hung on the tree was among the fallen archives. Are you still reluctant to part with it? Wan Zishan looked at it with him for a while. Shui Xiao shook his head, holding Wan Zishan's hand and walking into the wedding dress shop. Another certificate was scraped off by the wind, and a lot of leaves fell off. In the evening, Shui Xiao told Wan Zishan that he would go downstairs to buy something. They had lived together for a long time. Shui Xiao didn't remember the exact location of the mysterious shop, but he remembered the general location. But this time, it didn't take him much effort to find it. He shook the rainwater off the umbrella in front of the shop. Last time, he was in a hurry and scared, so he didn't have time to look around carefully, but this time, it didn't seem different. The club boss, sitting on the chair, still gave him a feeling of tranquility. Shui Xiao nodded to Boss Luo, and then heaved a sigh. He took off the crescent moon necklace and put it on the table in front of Boss Luo. Luoqiu said, "Customer, didn't I tell you not to worry?" Shui Xiao took a deep breath. "I don't want someone to suddenly appear in my house. I don't care, but it's not good to frighten Zishan." "Sorry, I suddenly appeared last time," Luoqiu said apologetically. Shui Xiao shook his head. He always felt that this mysterious boss would do things appropriately. Luoqiu took the crescent moon necklace and checked it carefully. He suddenly said, "Mr. Shui, you seem to have experienced a good journey. Have you found the answer?" "It's a secret." Shui Xiao smiled in front of the boss with relief. "That's good." Boss Luo nodded slightly and stood up. "If you need, you're welcome to come again." Shui Xiao was in awe of this mysterious power. He didn't say anything but nodded hurriedly. Then he took the umbrella and left the place. After coming out, the rain stopped and the night air was fresh. Shui Xiao took a deep breath and felt more energetic. But he didn't go home immediately. Instead, he took a detour and came to the wishing tree. Shui Xiao stretched out his hand and touched the tree trunk for a while. Then, he took a deep breath and climbed up with all his strength. Relying on his memory, he found the place where he had climbed up before. It was the place where he hung the treasure certificate for the girl. Back then, because he was afraid that it would be blown away by the wind, he tied it up, unlike others who threw it up. So, the treasure certificate was still there. Shui Xiao untied it and climbed down again. He didn't plan to take it away. Instead, he pried open some tiles on the sidewalk under the tree and dug deeper. He put the certificate in a box and buried it. The memories of his youth were simply buried in this place. But Shui Xiao felt a little regretful. He stood up and patted the mud on his hands. He said goodbye to his past self, but didn't have time to say goodbye to Su Jie. Perhaps she didn't want to hear it, so she left quietly like this? I don't know who didn't grow up. Shui Xiao sighed and drove away. Then, goodbye to the broken dream for 11 years. Chapter 546. Life was always busy, especially for people who were approaching their wedding date. It was even busier. Those old friends and classmates would always take the excuse of getting married as an excuse to fool around with the groom-to-be. For example, the so-called single night. However, they all knew Shui Xiao's personality. Therefore, they only booked a small bar for drinking. They were a little tipsy. Shui Xiao leaned on the sofa with a beer in his hand, looking at the happy faces of the others. It had been 2 days since he came back from the business trip, but he felt it was a long time. mainly because he was tired. At this time, the former class monitor of the high school came over and knocked the beer bottle in his hand. "Don't you want to drink with them?" "Why not?" The class monitor sat beside Xue Xiao and asked. "Well, I want to be alone." Xue Xiao smiled. "It's not bad to look at them. Sighing about life? People in the next stage of life are really different." The class monitor showed a "I understand" expression, looking at those classmates with Xue Xiao and laughing from time to time. "By the way, I helped you send the invitation to our head teacher the other day," the class monitor remembered and said. Xue Xiao gaped, asking curiously, "You sent?" "Oh, I remember, Zishan told me about it when I was on a business trip. Sorry to trouble you, I should have sent it myself." "What are you talking about?" The class monitor patted Xue Xiao's shoulder. "The teacher said he has retired and has a lot of time, so he will definitely come." "That's good." Xue Xiao hadn't seen him for many years, although they still contacted each other on the phone. "Oh right, there's one more thing." The class monitor looked at Xue Xiao. "Didn't you ask me to get Su Jiai's contact information? I talked with the head teacher that day and found that they were still in touch, so I asked for a phone number and called her. But I don't think she'll come. She's already married and her child is already a few years old." "Got married and had a kid?" Xue Xiao was stunned. Then, he sighed and drank a mouthful of beer before smiling. He smiled. "I didn't expect that I would be teased. You're really something. You're always able to bring me so many surprises. What are you giggling about?" the squad leader asked curiously. Xue Xiao clinked his glass with the squad leader and laughed. "Life is unpredictable. What else can it be?" The old squad leader said, "Yeah, the world is unpredictable. Who would have thought that the goddess of our class would get married just like that? What a pity." However, it was normal. After the winter break of the first semester of the third year of high school, she would go abroad to study for university and work. Naturally, she would fall in love, right? Foreigners are more open. "Oh, Xue Xiao, do you think foreign men are very good at that?" Class monitor, can't you be serious?" Xue Xiao frowned. He didn't know what to do with this old class monitor. He lowered his head and drank a mouthful of wine. Then, he was stunned as he recalled what the squad leader had just said. He asked in astonishment, "What did you just say? You went abroad before the winter vacation?" "Ah, that's right. He left the country," the old squad leader subconsciously said. "Isn't this something that everyone knows?" "No, impossible." Xue Xiao frowned. Didn't she go abroad during the summer vacation after the college entrance examination?" "Are you drunk?" The squad leader touched Xue Xiao's forehead. "You don't have a fever? Confused memory?" "How could it be?" Xue Xiao was unexpectedly excited. "It's impossible. Then who was with me in the second semester of the third year of high school?" "The second semester of the third year of high school?" The squad leader thought for a while. "Oh, what's Su?" "Oh, it's Su Xian, I remember. Su Xian, that's right, it's her name." Su Xian? Xue Xiao was full of doubts. The squad leader nodded. "I think you're really drunk. Su Xian, have you really forgotten her? She's the freshman who joined the class right after the winter vacation. She's quite pretty. Did you guys think that we didn't know about it? However, you're really capable. Our goddess just left and you got a new one. Gee, you're a hypocrite. Oh, what happened between you and Su Xian? I've never heard about it from you. How did you break up? You couldn't get into the same university?" "Su Xian. Su Jiai. How could it be?" Xue Xiao rubbed his forehead. No. Who is she?" "Squad leader, are you drunk or am I drunk?" The old squad leader touched his face and said, "Me? I'm just warming up." "Xue Xiao, what's wrong with you? You keep rubbing your head. Do you feel uncomfortable?" "Su Xian. Su Jiai." The two names kept circling in his mind like a spiral. "I might be drunk." Xue Xiao shook his head. "I think so. What nonsense are you talking about? The squad leader nodded. Stay here, I'll get you a cup of hot water. Seeing the squad leader leave, Xue Xiao suddenly stood up and walked to the students. He grabbed one of them. Ming, do you remember Su Jie and Su Xian? Su Jie. Of course. She's the ice goddess in our class. The guy called Ming seemed to have drunk too much. He put his hand on Xue Xiao's shoulder and said, Su Xian. I remember. Isn't she the girl who joined our class for a semester? She looks pretty. Oh, have you been together before? I think you've been sneaking around and playing tricks in class. Su Xian. Xue Xiao grabbed another one. Lu Kai, do you remember Su Xian? Isn't she your girlfriend? Su Xian. Xue Xiao grabbed another one. Before he asked, the guy said, I know Su Xian and Su Jie. Don't ask me, I want to drink, ha ha. Su Xian. He looked at the hall full of joy. He felt as if he was in another world. Why was it that only he didn't remember Su Xian? Who has Su Xian's contact number? Xue Xiao asked. Some students who were drunk said, I have a Hong's phone number, do you want? Haha, 1,000 yuan for a night. Hey, I have a Shaoli here. She's really good at it. Someone raised his hand high up like a student answering a teacher's question. Me too. Me too. Haha. Haha. Xue Xiao shook his head slightly and stepped back. He bumped into the squad leader who just came back with hot water. He grabbed the squad leader's hand and asked, Squad leader, can you find Su Xian? This time it's Su Xian? The squad leader was surprised. What do you want to do? Why do you always look for your old lover? Don't talk about this. Tell me first. The class monitor said helplessly, I remember she came here to borrow. She had to go back to the university for the college entrance examination. Well, she didn't come to the graduation party. I don't have her contact number. But maybe you can ask the head teacher, he might be able to find her. Or something. Su Xian? The old man with white hair and presbyopia glasses looked at Xue Xiao with confusion. He had a deep impression of this student. After all, she was taught by him and was admitted to a big university. They even contacted each other occasionally. Yes, teacher, can you remember her? Xue Xiao asked seriously. Well, no. The teacher shook his head and stood up. Wait a minute, let me find her. Which batch of students are you from? Batch 03. Batch 03. Batch 03, oh, I found her, here she is. The teacher walked to Xue Xiao with a thick hardcover book and opened it, reading page by page. Su Xian. Oh, I found her. The teacher turned to the page. Well, look, Su Xian, right? Transfer student, Su Xian, transfer time, 1 semester. Xue Xiao felt his hands and feet were cold. Teacher, why can't I see her picture? Maybe it's damp? The teacher pushed his glasses. This kind of black and white picture is not well preserved. You reminded me. I'll have to go back and do a good job of protecting it. Teacher, is there really such a person as Su Xian? All the information is here. How can it be missing? The teacher looked at Xue Xiao curiously. Xue Xiao didn't say anything, but continued to read the teacher's information until he found another name, Su Jie, dropped out in the second semester of grade 12. Reason, study abroad. Chapter 547. We didn't find the person called Su Xian. Please check it clearly. She was in the class of 03, and then went to the 3rd high school to study here. Su Xian, can you check it again? Sorry, sir, we have checked the student records. There is no such person called Su Xian. Did you make a mistake? It's impossible. I did find the information of Su Xian in our school, and it was marked that she came from here. Early in the morning, Xue Xiao drove to the high school that Su Xian studied in. Really? Sorry, sir, we can't help you. If there is nothing else, I still have work to do, can you? Xue Xiao left the office helplessly and walked out of the door in a daze. He still couldn't understand the whole story. Why all the students, including the head teacher, knew that Su Jiai and Su Xin were two different people, except him. Only him, they overlapped and became the same person. Xue Xiao sat in the driver's seat, and didn't start the car for a long time. His mind was in a mess. He thought that everything was over after he came back from the business trip. He enjoyed the journey and the dream he had for the past 11 years. He felt that everything was complete. Even if this young love couldn't reach the end, that kiss in the mall to buy back some time was enough. Xue Xiao gritted his teeth, taking out his phone. He asked the class monitor for Su Jiai's contact information. Maybe he could get some information if he contacted her again. But he hesitated for a while, hesitating whether to call her or not. Or check her Facebook first. Thinking of this, Xue Xiao finally opened the personal page of Su Jiai. On the first page, the first photo was a selfie of a woman wearing a yellow helmet standing on the coastline. The woman's face was similar to Su Jiai in his memory. Unexpectedly, her hair was cut short, and she was much fatter. It was totally not the Su Jiai he met in the hotel during his business trip, and the time of this photo was exactly the first day of his business trip. Xue Xiao browsed through the photos one by one, from her holding her child to her wedding photos, photos of her and her boyfriend, photos of her life when she was studying abroad. Little by little, this woman, who was already a mother, gradually returned to the appearance of Su Jiai in Xue Xiao's memory, her appearance in high school. Who did I meet? Xue Xiao leaned on the steering wheel for a long time. In the end, he mustered up the courage to make an international call. Hi. Who are you? Is it Su Jiai? I am. You are. The woman's confused voice came from the other side. It's me, Xue Xiao. Xue Xiao. Long time no see. The woman on the other side of the phone smiled and said, Well, congratulations. I heard that you're getting married soon, right? The class leader called me a few days ago. I'm really sorry, but I can't leave my work, so I can't attend your wedding. It was a very polite, courteous, and formulaic answer. That kind of alienation made Xue Xiao's hands and feet cold. It's okay. You got married and had a kid, but I didn't give you my blessings. Xue Xiao replied stiffly. Xue Xiao, I'm sorry, I'm busy here. The woman hurriedly said, Sorry, keep in touch, okay? Let's meet again if we have a chance to go back to China, okay? Beep. Xue Xiao went home and stayed at home alone for the whole afternoon, until it was completely dark. He didn't turn on the light, just turned on the TV and didn't change the channel. He just watched the pictures flashing one by one, but he couldn't remember them. He didn't even know what he was watching. His mind was filled with the second half of the senior year. Wan Zishan came back from work and turned on the light. She saw Xue Xiao sitting on the sofa and watching the TV alone, but his eyes seemed to be out of focus. She opened her mouth, but put down her things and walked to the back of the sofa. She pressed her hands on Xue Xiao's shoulders and kneaded for a while, lowering her head and asking, Is this strength okay? Xue Xiao patted her hands and turned around to kneel on the sofa, hugging Wan Zishan without saying a word. Are you tired today? I didn't go to work today. Something on your mind? Don't ask, just let me hug you like this. I feel it's real. Xue Xiao said softly. Wan Zishan smiled softly and hugged his head. They hugged each other for a long time, and then Xue Xiao fell asleep on the sofa. In the morning, Xue Xiao woke up with a headache and found himself covered with a blanket. Wan Zishan had gone to work. She just left a rich breakfast and a note on the table. Remember to eat breakfast, you didn't eat anything last night. I've asked for a leave for you in the company, saying you need to have a good rest if you don't feel well. Xue Xiao sat down, asking himself what was bothering him while eating the food in front of him silently. He found that he had been eating this woman's breakfast for 4 or 5 years. But at this moment, he felt a sense of guilt that he had never felt before. He was very embarrassed, very uncomfortable, and very uncomfortable. He decided to take a walk on the street. Unconsciously, he walked to Su Jiai's apartment building, standing there and staring at the empty suite for a long time. Then, he silently turned around and left. He didn't know where he was going, so he just walked for the time being, walking the path that he had walked with that girl for an entire semester. At that time, wow, arcade, I want to play Street Fighter. She waved her small fist and said, "Are you a girl? This sugar-coated haw is not delicious, I won't buy it anymore." She was angry. It was the third one. Xue Xiao, do you think we should adopt a kitten? Build a house here and feed it after school every day? She was curious. Who will clean the shit? Xue Xiao, do you want to buy me a piece of cake? It's the first time that you initiated a conversation with me. Xue Xiao stopped. It turned out that he had walked to the wedding dress shop. He subconsciously looked at the other side of the road. The guardrail around the banyan tree was still there. The sky was still gloomy, as if it was going to rain. It was almost 6 o'clock in the evening, and they had walked for half a day. So, it hasn't been cut. Xue Xiao stared at the wishing tree across the road. He couldn't even see its shadow. Only a few yellow leaves and withered leaves were hanging on the blackened branches. Xue Xiao suddenly had an unspeakable feeling. He suddenly ran to the other side of the road, ignoring the surprise of the passers-by, and started to dig up the soil under the tree, digging out a treasure certificate buried here. He patted the soil on the box and opened it again. Looking at the treasure certificate, he suddenly ran on the long street. "Su Jiai, I want to be with you forever." "Su Jiai, which university do you want to go to? Which university? It's a high score, but I'll have a try. I'll definitely get in. I just want to know, who was the person who accompanied me? I don't want to. I don't even know who the person I loved so much is. I don't want to be unable to remember you when I'm old." Ding! The doorbell rang. Xue Xiao pushed open the old door, standing in the hall while panting this time. He seemed to find the place faster. The club owner seemed to be surprised. He slowly put down the book in his hand and raised his head. "Sir, what's the matter?" Xue Xiao shook his head, adjusting his breath while walking towards Boss Luo. If no one knew the answer, then this club owner must know it. If no one could give him the answer, then this mysterious club owner must know it. "The person you arranged for me to meet is not the real Su Jiai, right?" Boss Luo said indifferently. "Sir, it doesn't seem to be important. Because your request is to see the girl of your first love again, isn't it? I just want to know the answer." Xue Xiao said in a low voice, "The real answer." Luoqiu thought for a while, standing up and walking to Xue Xiao, which made Xue Xiao take a step back. Luoqiu stopped and didn't continue to approach him, but said in a low voice, "So, do you want to buy the answer this time?" Looking at Xue Xiao's hesitant expression, Luoqiu said calmly, "I remember you said that you don't want to destroy anything that will ruin your future relationship with your wife for this matter. Then, whether it's your lifespan, health, or any kind of emotion, you won't treat it as something to be sold to us, right?" Seeing Xue Xiao didn't speak, Boss Luo continued in a low voice, "So, are you willing to break your previous decision in order to know the answer? For the answer of the past and your future, what will you choose?" It was a difficult and painful choice. It was like putting the girl and Wan Zishan in front of him, and he could only choose one. It was so difficult. He tightened his grip on the box in his hand, took a deep breath and said, "I still have things that I can sell that won't affect the future. I don't believe that it's enough to exchange for an answer." "Don't you think it's a loss if you lose your childhood happiness and can't remember it in the future?" Boss Luo asked curiously. Xue Xiao said faintly, "Happy memories can be created again. I believe I can. But I don't want to not know the answer for my whole life. If I don't know, I can't face Zishan anymore." "You're indeed a businessman, very careful." Boss Luo smiled. "So, the contract is made. Customer, please come to me." "With you," Xue Xiao stopped before he finished his words, because he was no longer in the shop, but on the road. "This is..." Xue Xiao looked at the road in astonishment. Why did you bring me here? Wedding dress shop. Wishing tree. Under the tree. The answer you want is here. Boss Luo pointed at the wishing tree. Please put your hand on it, I'll let you know the answer. Xue Xiao couldn't help but believe in the boss's words. Slowly, he put his hand on the trunk of the fallen tree. Chapter 548. I don't have a name and I don't know who I am. I only know that, unknowingly, I gained consciousness. I could see many, many people. Later on, I learned that they are called humans. They walked by me all the time, and sometimes they would stop by me, chatting. Slowly, I found that I liked listening to their conversations, because when they were chatting, I could learn many things. Interesting things, things to complain about, gossiping about others, and good things to say about others. Everything, I would listen attentively. Even if these humans didn't know, I could hear what they were saying. But I was still willing because I have no way to leave this place, because I know that I am just a tree. My roots are here, very deep, and will be even deeper in the future. But I suddenly had an idea. If I can leave this place, I want to walk around. I want to see the places that these humans mentioned when they were chatting and eat the things that they said were delicious. But when will I be able to leave this place? Summer is a little hot, so I like the rain. But winter is a little cold, and many leaves have fallen. So annoying. When will I be able to leave this place? I have been here for many years. So lonely. Recently, I have one more thing that I hate. It is really annoying, really annoying. These humans, what are they throwing at me? One by one, they are so heavy they will crush my branches, okay? Annoying. Super annoying. Don't throw any more, okay? I will not help you fulfill your wishes. How can I help you fulfill your wishes? When will I be able to leave this place? It is winter again, so annoying. Where did the sparrows go? Why are they not coming anymore? The number of people going out also decreased. I really hope that summer will come soon. When will I be able to leave this place? Later on, I met a fellow. For the first time, I met someone who could talk to me. Oh, right, she said that she was not a human, but a monster, also a kind of living creature. She said that her surname was Long, and she planned to stay here for a long time. She also told me that I was actually a tree spirit, and told me to slowly stay like this, and that one day I will be able to leave this place. I finally know what I am. I am happier than ever, looking forward to the day when I can leave this place. Then, unknowingly, 50 years passed. Just like what the woman surnamed Long told me, I can really leave this place. But only a little. I can only walk about 10 meters away from here. However, I am already very happy, super happy. The only thing I am not happy about is that those humans are hanging more and more things on my body. The old ones fell off, and the new ones took their place. Forget it, I don't want to worry about this anymore. I want to cultivate. I want to go further and further away. Ha ha! I can finally go far, far away. Today, I officially reached the 10-kilometer range. It was my first time walking around here. More than 50 years had passed since then. According to the human language, am I an old woman? Of course not. You humans, when are you going to stop giving me things? I really can't help you. So, don't blame me, okay? Recently, a very mischievous human child came. He's really too mischievous. I've never seen such a child before. What was this guy doing? He even climbed on my body. Although there were many people who climbed on top of me over the years, none of them were as bad as you, okay? You actually stood on top of me and peed on the people on the ground. Peed on my body. Pee. Unbelievable. Damn it. Ha. Are you beaten? Such a troublemaker, are you beaten? Is it painful? Do you know you are wrong? You deserve it. Cry, I'm so happy to see you cry. Ha. His name is Xue Xiao. I've never seen such a naughty and annoying guy. Xue Xiao, do you know how many new twigs and leaves have fallen off because of you crawling on my body every day? But, since you helped me to remove those treasures, I'll let you do whatever you want. Humph, thank me. Today, Xue Xiao didn't come. I felt that something was missing, so I was unhappy. It turned out that he caught a cold. Humans were so fragile. But, he seemed to grow taller. Sigh, grow up quickly, don't bother me all day. Look, I have to worry about you all day, so I can't concentrate on my cultivation recently. You little bastard, you climbed so high today, I'll fall to your death. You really fell? Little bastard. I clenched my teeth and broke my own branches, finally hooking this little bastard. So painful, so painful, so painful. You little bastard. You only know how to cause trouble. So painful. If I knew it was so painful, I wouldn't have saved you. Fall to your death. Let's see if you still dare to be so naughty. But it's good that you're fine. Next time, don't climb so high, little fool. You little bastard, why didn't you climb up today? You almost fell yesterday, so you finally know fear? Not bad, you are worth teaching. Wait. Little bastard, what are you doing? You want to throw something at me? Little bastard. How dare you? Big tree, Mom said that God saved me, but I don't think so, you saved me. Thank you. Let me make a wish for you too. Nobody has ever made a wish for me. Never had. Little bastard. Why am I crying? Little bastard. I hate you so much. You made me cry. But, thank you. Today, Xue Xiao didn't come. He was unhappy. Today, Xue Xiao came. Since he came, he would stay for a while. Recently, he didn't come much. You started to play other things like football or video games. Humph. You only know how to play. You better not come. Annoying. Annoying. Xue Xiao is the most annoying. Will you come tomorrow? I think, if I appear in front of you, what will you do? So annoying. Since you don't come, I will go to see you. I didn't cultivate for nothing. Humph. Am I awesome? This was Xue Xiao's junior high school. What was the feeling of going to school? Little bastard, don't rush so fast. Why are you playing football so barbaric? Look. You fell. Who asked you to be so barbaric? Is it painful? Xue Xiao. Come on. Xue Xiao. Go. Go. Pass. Yes. That's it. Score. I jumped up happily. The people around me couldn't see me, so I could be as happy as I want. Yeah. If I could go to them and play with you, how good would that be? Today, you were scolded by your mother. Who asked you to make trouble? Humph. Since you are so miserable, I will help you. There is a tree hole nearby. What do you want to say? It's just a tree hole. I don't feel pain. You've already rarely come here anymore. You are in high school now. Sujiai, I like you. You. What did you say in the tree hole? Who is Sujiai? I don't want to hear it. Don't say it, okay, I know you have a girl you like. You have been following her all day. Do you think I don't know? I get angry when I see you. Don't go this way. I don't want to see you. Go after her if you like her so much. Bastard. 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 Wishing tree. I heard that the wishes you make here are all very effective. Maybe I will make a wish before I leave. I hope I can enter a good university. You? Why do you want to make a wish here? It's your first time here and you heard it from others. You want me to help you? Are you kidding me? You are an ugly woman. You? If you leave, what about Xue Xiao? He hasn't confessed to you yet. Don't go, okay? Xue Xiao will be sad. Please. Little fool, why are you still going this way? She is going to leave soon. Do you know that? She left. She went abroad. Just like that. I know. You don't need to say it to my tree hole. I know. Little fool. My heart hurts. I want to cry. I really want to cry. You're crying, okay? Xue Xiao, don't cry, okay, please don't cry, okay, please, I will do whatever you want. Please, don't let me see your sad face. Really, I'm begging you, please, can you help me this once? I couldn't bear Xue Xiao's painful eyes. These days, I had been watching him from outside and hiding in the house, so I made a decision. I found the monster surnamed Long and begged her to help me once, but she didn't seem to be willing. So I kept begging her and bothering her. Only this time. Don't do it again. But she still told me seriously, humans have their boundaries. So do monsters and elves. If you cross the boundary, you will be the one who suffers. No, I won't regret it. I asked her to help me seal Xue Xiao's memory of Su Jiai going abroad so that he wouldn't remember it. Today, I wore a beautiful dress and showed my face in front of a human for the first time. No, it was another human's appearance. This human was called Su Jiai. I leaned on my body and waited for a long time. I was so nervous. I saw him. I was still nervous. I was afraid that he would see something, but I still said, Xue Xiao, can you treat me a piece of cake? Everyone in the class thought I was Su Xian. Only Xue Xiao thought I was Su Jiai when he saw me. I knew Lord Long had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. He said it would only be this time, but he still helped me. Thank you. I started to go to school with Xue Xiao. We studied together and finished school together. This little bastard, he didn't dare to hold my hand for such a long time. Be brave. Do you want me to take the initiative? I took the initiative. Ah. I want to die. I took the initiative. We walked through every day hand in hand. We ate at every stall together. We watched the sunset together. We played games together secretly. Together. Then you gave me a second ultimatum. You said that you wanted to be with Su Jiai forever. Su Jiai is not me. I also want to be with you forever. Forever and ever. But you don't know I am not her. So painful. So painful. So painful, I really regretted it. This feeling, I don't want it, I don't want it. I really don't want it. But, as long as you are happy. Suddenly one day, I fell down when Xue Xiao just left. I was never like this. I used all my strength to crawl back to my body. I felt so tired as if I was going to explode. I didn't even have time to say anything before I fainted. When I woke up, I saw Master Long frowning and sighing as he looked at me. I really shouldn't have agreed to your request. Su Xian, do you know? You should end it and go back to your original body to cultivate. Do you know that human love is like a tribulation to you, and it's the most difficult tribulation to resolve? If you continue like this, as a tree spirit, you won't be able to take human form one day. But you have to cut off your love tribulation before you can reach the next stage of cultivation. I don't want it. No matter if you want it or not, I won't let it continue. I will correct that human's memory and erase all traces of you in the human world. Lord Long, do you want to see me disintegrate myself here? Are you threatening me? I knew she was angry and I couldn't breathe because of her huge power. I cried, I really will. She kicked me out of the door and didn't say anything to me. I could see that she was disappointed in me. But I knew that she didn't care. What I was thinking now was that it was Xue Xiao's birthday soon. What should I give him? Lord Long was right. I didn't know why, but my body was getting weaker day by day. There seems to be something in my body that keeps devouring my strength, my life. I faintly feel it, but no matter how it grows, it will devour all of me, and I will disappear. Then, something bad will appear. I was scared. I didn't have a good rest. I was getting weaker and weaker. What did I do today? I was so scared that my body was trembling, so scared that my body was trembling. I strangled Xue Xiao's neck when he was sleeping. I didn't know what I was doing at that time. But I knew that my purpose was to kill him. It was that thing. It was that thing. It was my instinct. My instinct didn't want me to be swallowed by it. It urged me to kill it, to kill Xue Xiao and make it disappear. My instinct. I was so scared. Xue Xiao. I was really scared. Because I knew that it had grown to the extent that it couldn't be destroyed, my instinct was just resisting. But how could I do that? If I was swallowed by it and forgot about you, I would rather kill myself. I dug out my own tree heart. It contained all my strength and was what I relied on to survive. In that case, even if it swallowed me, it wouldn't get anything. When I died, it would die with me. I made it into a crescent moon and gave it to him, the only human I loved in my life. I couldn't persist anymore. I tried my best to accompany him every day before I disappeared. I told him that I wanted to enter a very good university. I wanted him to study hard and enter that university. I hoped that he could have a good future. I persisted until the college entrance examination. But I couldn't persist anymore. I slowly melted into my body. My consciousness could no longer leave my body. Day by day, I gradually couldn't see anything and gradually couldn't hear anything. Sometimes I woke up and sometimes I fell asleep. I didn't know when I would wake up again. Whenever you passed by, I would open my eyes, even if it was just a glance at you. I knew you were in the college entrance examination. I knew everything, I know all about it. Why did you do that? Finally, I heard Lord Long's voice. She should be by my side right now. You'll never recover after digging out your own tree heart. Your consciousness will fade away and you'll become an ordinary tree. You won't even know what you are after a few years. I said, I'm Su Xin. Su Xin from Su Xin. Master Long stood in front of me for a long time. In the end, she sighed and said softly, I won't erase that human's memories of the past few months. I will take care of your disappearance. Just give that human a dream. Thank you, Lord Long, silly kid. Finally, I couldn't hear anything anymore, and I couldn't see anything either. I didn't know if he was living well. I didn't know if he would come to my side again and talk to my tree hole after Su Jiai left. I didn't know. The surroundings became very dark, very heavy, very heavy. Something locked me, and I knew that I could no longer leave this dark place. Xue Xiao, will you have a good life? Have you met a girl you like, Xue Xiao? I want to see you again. One day, I woke up. I could see and hear things again. There was a warm feeling on my body. That night, I saw a very beautiful light flashing across the sky, just like fireworks. Those little bits of starlight fell on my body, allowing me to recover some of my strength. I was surprised that I could wake up and didn't forget the past. But I couldn't go too far. I was only 2 or 3 meters away. I was very tired, just like before. I was still very weak. Those starlights only gave me a little strength. The surroundings changed a lot. Has it been a long time? Xue Xiao, has he grown up? Has he become old? How many years have I slept? I woke up and slept again. I seemed to be able to stay awake for a while. Xue Xiao. I suddenly heard this name from a woman's mouth. It woke me up. This name woke me up. I opened my eyes and saw him. He has grown up a lot. But I recognized him at first sight. Little bastard, he has gained so much weight. I know it has been 11 years. I know you are going to get married soon. You bought the dress and took the photos in the bridal shop opposite. Oh, come closer. The curtain is blocking. I can't see you. You are smiling happily. The woman you are holding must like you very much. I am a little jealous. But it's so good to see you again. I really want to hold your hand once again. I want to. But I found that it's good to look at him like this. I always wake up and stare at the bridal shop in a daze, waiting for him to appear. But it won't happen too many times. I think that the strength given by the starlight will disappear soon. I will almost return to that dark place. Maybe I will never wake up again. But, thanks to it, I can see it again. Miss Su Xian, would you like to come out? I have been sleeping for many days. Suddenly, I heard such a voice. I even had the strength to open my eyes. Then I saw a guy wearing a mask. He asked me if I want to see Xue Xiao again. Xue Xiao can see me and explained the reason to me. I agreed. I agreed without thinking. Xue Xiao, this is your last request. How can I refuse? How can I see you holding a grudge for the past? I want to give you a happy future. I will. This is the last time I can do something for you. I suddenly feel so happy. So, I will appear in front of you with the identity of Su Jiai again. Finally, I will help you to understand the dream 11 years ago, okay? Little bastard. I really can do it again. Damn, I cry again. We have a wonderful holiday. Little bastard, you said you want to introduce your wife to me. Do you want me to cry in front of you? But I forgive you because you took the initiative to hold my hand this time. Xue Xiao, have you let go this time? I know you have grown up. You are not that naughty little bastard anymore. In the end, I left without saying goodbye. Who asked you to use the tree heart I gave you? Who asked me not to say goodbye? It was not an answer, but her whole life, Su Xian's whole life, all her memories, all her feelings, all her pain and sadness. Her happiness. Xue Xiao found that there were 2 lines of tears on his face when he came to himself. He had never felt so heartbroken since he found it. She said she was lonely and cut him. She said he was a little bastard and cut him. She said you didn't come today, so she was unhappy and cut him. She said she saw you again, so she cut him. Xue Xiao felt that his heart was like a sieve with thousands of holes. No matter how hard it beat, it couldn't send the blood that could bring warmth to his whole body. There was a person, even though it was not a person but a tree spirit. There was such a tree spirit who had been guarding him silently since he was a child. It accompanied him to grow up, to be with him through his sadness and happiness. You are so silly. Is it worth it for me? His eyes were red and his voice was hoarse. Is it worth it? I'd rather I'd never appear in your life than have you die. The guilt and pain tore his rationality apart, making him forget everything that was important to him. He looked at the club owner with despair, saying with a hoarse voice, "Tell me, you can let Su Xian go back to the past. Tell me, what do you want to take away from me? Anything. 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 I don't want her. I don't want her to die." He knelt on the ground, big drops of tears dripped down. I can't let go for 11 years. But I didn't know she was Su Xian. I didn't know what she did for me. Why didn't she tell me? What is the difference between humans and monsters? I only know that I hurt her, harming the one who silently protected me and gave up everything for me. My life, my soul, anything is fine, anything is fine. Luoqiu suddenly said, "Customer, don't you care about your fiancé?" Xue Xiao raised his head and asked back, "If I were you, what would you choose? One was deeply in love with me and gave me everything. The other was someone I was prepared to spend the rest of my life with. If you were me, what would you choose? You tell me." "Sorry, I can't understand it." Luoqiu shook his head. Xue Xiao said sadly, "I can't pretend that I don't know. In this life, I can't pretend that I don't know. This kind of pain and guilt, this kind of unforgettable feeling, will only devour me as time passes, step by step. It's unfair to Zishan. But it's unfair to her. I'm wrong. I shouldn't pursue my dream. No. If I didn't pursue it, I wouldn't even know everything. I wouldn't even know what Su Xian did to me." So he looked at Luoqiu and cried, "It's the real cruelty to her, crueler than anything else. So, I can't forgive myself for not doing anything. I can't forgive myself for pretending that I don't know anything and living my life. I can't hurt 2 people I love at the same time." "I see." Luoqiu nodded. "Then, let's talk about the details. Customer, Su Xian is a tree spirit born by nature. She's more precious than a normal human being. Even if you sacrifice everything, you can only prolong her life." "How long?" 30 years. 30 years. 30 years. Xue Xiao stood up. 30 years. Maybe she can find Lord Long again. Maybe he can bring her more opportunities. 30 years. You've been with me for 30 years. I'll give you 30 years. Su Xian, I won't let you die like this. Boss, this deal, No. No. Someone, from behind, jumped on him and hugged him tightly. No, Xue Xiao. No, I don't want it. Su Xian. It's you. Xue Xiao tried to turn around, but he could only see a pair of hands in front of his chest. The hands were faintly glowing, as if they would disappear at any time. Don't turn around, I beg you. Don't turn around. Why? Don't you want me to see the real you? No means no. You know I'm capricious. If you turn around, I won't come out anymore. Xue Xiao gently grasped the hands in front of his chest and nodded silently. He found that the boss was gone, as if he was leaving some time for them. They hugged for a long time. There seemed to be no one on the street. He didn't care, only hoping that the time could be longer. Su Xian, I finally know your name. Yes, it's my name. Soon, you'll recover soon, very soon. That pair of hands suddenly broke free from his grasp and covered his mouth forcefully. He felt her hug on his back tighten, and he also heard her sad voice at this moment. I'll kill myself, I will. Xue Xiao's body shook. I really do know how to do it. Xue Xiao couldn't help crying. Why did she say it in such a relaxed tone? It's so unfair. I've done so much, but you didn't do anything for me. So annoying. Why did she say it in such a relaxed tone? Why? Xue Xiao, can you do one thing for me too? He pulled her hand away from his mouth. He knew better than anyone else in the world what she wanted him to do. No, I really don't want it. Do you want me to leave with regret? No. I really don't want it. Boss. Now you. That hand once again covered his lip. It was very, very light. Xue Xiao, I'm crying. I can't stop my tears. Do you know? I can kill myself now. You really don't want it? Why, in the end, I'm still so powerless. You're so cruel to me. Do you know, Su Xian? So, promise me, okay? Xue Xiao answered softly with a sob. You don't seem sincere. Xue Xiao nodded vigorously and replied with a heavy Then, she put down her hands and hugged his chest gently. She leaned her face on his shoulder and said softly, Don't miss me. Go back to your original life. Xue Xiao clenched his fists and trembled slightly. Is this your last wish? Yes. Xue Xiao said softly, I don't know anyone called Su Xian. I only had a crush on Su Jiayi in high school, but she's married now. I'm a bad girl. I don't know Su Xian. Okay? Okay. I don't know Su Xian. I only love one person now. She's my fiancée. We're going to get married soon. Okay? Okay. Okay. I don't know Su Xian. Later, I'll tell my kids about my love story with their mother. Okay. 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 I don't know Su Xian. Later. I won't pass by here, never. Okay? Okay. His hand was disappearing bit by bit, and the feeling of being hugged also became lighter bit by bit, becoming faintly discernible. Okay, the words were still lingering in his ears. Xue Xiao couldn't see the girl from the beginning to the end. He stood there silently, even though he knew that nobody was hugging him anymore. Once again, he dug up the bricks under the tree and carefully buried the box in his hand. Then, he sat under the tree and leaned against it. I'll remember this promise for the rest of my life. Su Xian. He leaned against the tree and fell into a deep sleep. At this moment, the fluorescent light started to spread on the wishing tree, starting from where Xue Xiao was leaning against it. In an instant, all the remaining yellow leaves on the tree were scattered. They seemed to be caught by the girl's hand, and then gently covered the sleeping man's body. Layer by layer, it was like a quilt, until the last yellow leaf. The fluorescent lights faded away like fireflies in summer. They completely separated from the tree and gradually gathered together to form a figure. A girl's figure. "Boss, can you come out for a while?" she called softly. "What's the matter, Miss Suxin? You're so mysterious. You came as soon as I called you." As a tree spirit, she opened her eyes widely and said unbelievably, "Oh, if I could meet you earlier, I wouldn't be so miserable." Luocio found this tree spirit was really gentle, so gentle that it was a bit cruel. "I'm just joking," she chuckled. "Seriously, let's discuss something, okay? You have to agree. Because I'm good at torturing people. Are you afraid? As long as it's the request of the customer," Luocio said softly. "Thanks to the starlight last time, I recovered a little." She thought for a while and said, "I wanted to keep a little bit so that I wouldn't disappear so quickly. But now, can I buy something with this weak soul of a tree spirit?" Previously, there was a guest that I respected. It made itself disappear. Luocio said suddenly. He dispersed himself and brought some vitality to all the flowers and trees in the city. Really, no wonder. She shook her head. "Let's talk about the thing we discussed." "Customer, please go ahead." She suddenly cried silently with big drops of tears. She sobbed, "I'm so annoying. I'm crying again, so annoying. So annoying. So annoying. Boss, can you buy back Shui Xiao's childhood happiness?" "Yes." Can I bless him to live a happy life with his wife in the future?" She cried like a child. "Yes." She wiped away the tears on her face, over and over again, but the tears just wouldn't stop. Can I make him forget, truly forget everything about me? Are you sure?" Boss Luo asked softly. Don't let me say it again. Okay?" She choked with sobs. "I see." Boss Luo nodded. "Everything will be as you wish, my respected customer." She came to Shui Xiao's side, wiping away all her tears to make herself clean. Then she bent down and kissed Shui Xiao's lip. It was a kiss that seemed to be able to freeze time. "Shui Xiao, thank you for being with me. You don't make my summer restless. You don't make my winter cold. You make my heart beat again and again. Thank you," she said softly. Please don't remember. Remember, I love you the most when you are not with me." Finally, she looked up at the sky, taking a deep breath and opening her hands. "Ah, I'm leaving this time. I don't want to leave. Ah." How much happiness and sadness were there in her laughter. Looking at this scene, Luocio suddenly gently pinched his forehead, then gently shook his head and took a deep breath. He walked to Shui Xiao and opened his palm. A heart-shaped pendant appeared on his palm. Tree Spirit Su Xian looked at the boss's action with astonishment. He pushed the necklace away, and then the necklace was hung on Shui Xiao's neck again. "Isn't this necklace? Just take it as," Luocio said softly, "a gift." Suddenly Tree Spirit faced Luocio, clasped his hands in front of him, and bowed deeply to this mysterious boss. Really thank you, the last, thank you. Thank you for being so gentle." The tranquility of the long street faded away. At 10 o'clock in the evening, there were pedestrians again. However, there was a man who was sleeping under a tree whose leaves were emitting light. He seemed to be sleeping peacefully. He was smiling. He was probably having a good dream. But why were there tears? "Ah, I feel like dying." Shui Xiao's head was extremely heavy. He woke up in the hospital. The doctor said that he fell asleep while hugging a tree. He even got wet in the middle of the night. Fortunately, he was sent to the hospital in time. Otherwise, it would have been more serious. Therefore, it was fortunate that he only had a fever and a weak body. His head was still very heavy. Why did he hug the wishing tree and sleep for a whole night? He couldn't remember anything. He felt that he had forgotten something important. He subconsciously played with the crescent necklace. Where did he get this necklace? Forget it, he had been wearing it for a long time. "I'll just keep wearing it. I feel like wearing it will give me a very cool and comfortable feeling. At this time, the door of the ward was pushed open. It was Wan Zishan. How do you feel? Wan Zishan put a big bag in front of the bed and asked softly. I'm fine, I should be discharged in 2 days. Xue Xiao smiled. It won't affect our wedding. What's this? It's such a big bag. Wan Zishan smiled mysteriously, then took out the thing in the bag. It was a flower pot with a bare root in the soil. This is... Xue Xiao suddenly had an indescribable feeling. Wan Zishan chuckled. Look at you, you hugged the wishing tree and slept for a whole night. I don't know what's wrong with you. But the tree was cut down today. I went to check it and found it was still alive, so I took it away secretly. Since you don't want to give it up, you can plant it again. Speaking of which, fortunately I was fast enough. At that time, there was a guy who wanted to take it away. I remember seeing it somewhere. A wedding dress shop? I can't remember. Xue Xiao didn't hear Wan Zishan's words, but just stared at the small root blankly. What's wrong? Wan Zishan leaned on Xue Xiao's shoulder and asked. Xue Xiao grabbed Wan Zishan's hand, shaking his head and smiling. Nothing, I'm thinking, I'll tell you more about me and the wishing tree later. Well, you have to plant it quickly. Well, let's plant it together. Xue Xiao suddenly untied the crescent moon necklace, carefully hanging it on the small root. He felt that they were a perfect match. Well, the early bird beat us to it. Luoqiu stood at the site where the workers cut down the tree, looking at the wood pieces that were cut and placed on the ground, shaking his head slightly. Miss Maid accompanied him at this moment, suddenly smiling. It's still alive, the vitality of trees is really strong. Well, forget it. Luoqiu chuckled. Anyway, there are better things left. Boss Luo climbed over the guardrail, but all the workers acted like they didn't see him. Boss Luo walked to an intact tree trunk, reaching out his hand and knocking on it. The tree trunk, which was still fresh and moist, broke into two just like that. At the place where the tree trunk split apart, a small treasure archive was unexpectedly embedded in the tree trunk. Boss Luo took it down gently, shaking it. She lost the tree heart, so she used it as her heart. After opening the archive, there were some words written in crooked characters. Wishing tree, I hope you'll be healthy. Xue Xiao wishes you. Chapter 549. After nearly 3 hours of boiling donkey-hide gelatin, ginseng, astragalus, Panax nodo ginseng, and dozens of other herbs, the monster realm elder Chichi Kamaya turned off the stove. Of course, this stove was not an ordinary stove. As for these herbs, naturally, they were not things that could be bought in ordinary pharmacies. As for these great tonics, was it appropriate to stew them in such a messy way? Let those old Chinese medicine doctors and this monster realm elder talk about what the inner part of the compendium of Materia Medica was. Lord Long, your medicine. Hearing the old turtle's voice, Shinryu, who had gradually gotten used to this, suddenly frowned as if he had seen a ghost. Although she was the one who had instructed him to prepare the medicine to replenish his blood and qi, the taste was enough to make him wish he was dead. What kind of feeling was it? It was like fresh and sweet orange juice mixed with sewage from the sewer, and then squeezed a layer of cream and coffee on top. As for why Kelowna Shinryu could describe this taste so accurately? Probably because he was bored recently and watched a show about the so-called strongest man on Earth, who stood at the top of the food chain and was influenced by it. Put it down first. Long Shirua sighed, looking a little lonely at this time. Chichi Kamaya glanced at the computer screen that Long Shiro was looking at. It was a news. The 100-year-old wishing tree in the community was cut down, and the residents spontaneously organized a commemorative activity. Long Shirua knew Chichi Kamaya's little move, shook her head and said, "This tree used to be a very promising tree spirit. Unfortunately, it fell into the tribulation of love and ruined itself. At that time She sighed slowly, turned off the computer screen, and drank the medicine brought by Chichi Kamaya. But this time, it seemed to be a little more painful in the heart than in the mouth. It was also a little bitter. Chichi-Kamiya waited quietly for a moment, then suddenly said, "My lord, I have to go on a long trip in a few days. I'm afraid I can't serve you for the time being. But don't worry, I've already prepared enough medicinal ingredients. Milord, you can decoct and consume them yourself." "Far away?" Long Shirua frowned. "What do you want?" Chichi-Kamiya said seriously, "My lord, the once-in-a-decade ceremony of the cultivation world is about to begin. The Xianyuan Palace is the guardian palace of the human emperor, so I can't not go. All these years, the Xianyuan Palace has been missing a human emperor, so as a servant, I can only attend on behalf of my master." Long Shirua is stunned. She rubs her forehead. She has lost too much blood recently. She often has headaches and dizziness, and she feels weak all over. It turns out that another 10 years have passed. Those guys in the world of cultivation are really not giving up on Penglai. After so many years, it has slowly become another form of communication. Chichi-Kamiya said calmly, "Everyone knows that it's illusory, but it's just a ceremony. Why don't we do it? At least we have something to remember." "Go ahead." Long Shirua shook her head. "Anyway, I'm not interested in this matter. Besides, it's not convenient to talk about it now. My lord, I'll take Ghost Baby and some of my subordinates with me. I'm afraid I can't protect you personally." Chichi-Kamiya took out his bead and put it in front of Long Shirua. "However, I've implanted the skill 3 times in it. You can use the virtual shadow last time by dripping a drop of Shinryu's blood in it each time. But remember, Shinryu's power is too strong. You can only use 1 drop at a time. This skill can't support you if you use more." "It's better than nothing." Long Shirua nodded. "But it should be enough to protect myself." "Thank you, old turtle." Chichi-Kamiya bowed respectfully. "My lord, please be careful. Remember, there were more than 7 billion people in the world. That was to say, the things that happened every day were as numerous as the sand in the Ganges. For example, there was such a group of people in a remote mountain forest in a peninsular country. They wore the clothes of ancient warriors, but most of their hairstyles were modern. There were 13 of them, from young to middle-aged men. They wore the same clothes and held the same straight knives. They were running in the forest, chasing after a figure in front of them. Of course, during the process of chasing, there was no lack of angry curses because they could not catch up no matter how hard they tried. Moreover, the person running in front of them not only killed their master, but also stole a secret treasure that they had been guarding for nearly 200 years. What was more abominable was that the murderer was born in this place. At least her parents were the descendants of this place. They didn't know what she had been through all these years. She was only around 20 years old, but her hair had already turned white and she had such terrifying strength. Their master couldn't even hold on for more than 30 seconds before he was defeated by her. "Don't run. We'll never let you go. Accept your punishment. You murderer." Pop! She blew a big bubble out of the bubble gum in her mouth, then burst it and began to chew again. Different from the men who were chasing her, she was as calm as if she was taking a stroll. This was Miss Nero from the Michael Club. "I don't care if you say that I stole something, but I won't take the blame for being a murderer." Nero yawned and said, "That guy couldn't beat me, so he vomited blood and died after he admitted defeat. How can you blame me? You must have used a despicable method to kill our master. Our master didn't do his best. You must have done it." "Ha ha!" Nero suddenly stopped and turned around. She clapped her hand behind her back, and a strange sword in the painting tube rose into the sky with silver light, then fell beside her. Nero's hand gently held the handle of the sword, and blew another bubble. She sneered at these men who stopped to protect her. "Do you want me to try the sword?" "Which, we won't shoot you." The crowd shouted. "Then why don't you do it?" Nero shook her head and reached out to take out a small bag hanging on her belt. She tossed it in her hand and raised her eyebrows. "You can accuse me of murder as you like, but I won't give you this thing. This is my mother's thing back then, so it's mine. I'm just taking back what's mine. Your mother is just a guardian of this sword. It belongs to this place. Nero's eyes suddenly turned cold, and a cold air came out. The Yamato in her hand seemed to be murmuring the devil, which made the 13 men's faces change. Nero pulled out the Yamato and raised it to the sky, saying indifferently, I said I want to try the sword. Who wants to do it? Nero waved the sword and pointed at a middle-aged man. If you don't want to do it, then I will. She slowly walked forward step by step. The group of people, 13 big men, subconsciously used their swords to block in front of their bodies, but unknowingly retreated. This witch, her aura is so terrifying. The murmuring of the devil from the Yamato gradually became louder and louder, and then it sounded like a roar. Hiss! Roar! A terrifying roar suddenly sounded in everyone's hearts. Subconsciously, the 13 men's legs went soft and they sat on the ground. Nero suddenly burst into laughter. What a coward! My sword doesn't want to eat you weak scumbags. Goodbye. My time is up anyway. As she spoke, the white-haired woman who looked like a demoness from hell disappeared into thin air in front of the 13 men. They looked at the scene in disbelief. How could a person disappear into thin air? This woman is so terrifying. Well, the word horrifying was something they learned from reading an online novel from a certain country, but they felt that it was the most appropriate word to describe this demoness. When the white light flashed, the servant girl who was wiping the cupboard and looking for a place to put the document brought back by her master stopped. The shop owner who was reading a book also looked up. In the white light, Miss Nero, who was holding the Yamato in her hand, looked around and muttered, It's really convenient. I came back just like that. It seems that Miss Nero had a good trip. Boss Luo walked up with a smile. Nero shrugged, put the Yamato on his shoulder, and laughed, not bad. If you don't count the obvious malicious start of the fight that you threw me directly on the isolated reef overseas, I recently fought a fight, took revenge, and got back something. And you teleported me to show off. I think those people must be scared to death now, ha ha. Although she said so, Nero still secretly glanced at her Yamato. Less than 10 seconds ago, it was still emitting a terrifying demonic aura, but now it had completely shrunk. It was as quiet as a sleeping sick cat. Tut tut! He was truly a shameless blade that swayed according to the wind. Nero calmly glanced at the shop owner. She didn't know who was the scariest one. Miss Nero is still as forthright as ever. Boss Luo smiled and opened his palm. There was a bag on his palm. It was the sole transaction fee that Nero deposited here before. The bag flew to Nero. Boss Luo said indifferently, After deducting your expenses, there are still 7 souls left. Customer, please keep them. Nero shook the bag and put it away without opening it. At the same time, she put the Yamato back into the microphone and sat down casually. She sighed, I just came back. I'm so tired. Boss, give me a glass of beer. I want a large one. Also, can you give me something to eat? Miss Maid's cooking is really good. You go and prepare. Boss Luo said softly. Miss Maid bowed slightly and left quietly. Luochio looked at the owner of the Yamato. She was really an interesting customer, just like those adventurers in the Adventurers Bar in fantasy novels. Beer hurts the stomach. Luochio smiled. If you don't mind, I recently learned how to make a cocktail. Do you want to try it? Nero narrowed her eyes. So romantic? Are you trying to flirt with me? Boss Luo. Luochio immediately took back his previous comment. Yen PS1. Sorry, I only have one tonight. Because I just finished writing the story of Tree Spirit, I need to adjust myself. Besides, I'm not a juicer. I can't make juice easily. Chapter 550. Nero still didn't drink the cocktail made by the boss himself. Instead, she ordered a glass of white beer, in an oversized cup. While eating the barbecue served by Miss Maid, she said, Really? So many things happened. No wonder Cuck lost his memory. It turned out that he was plotted by Xiang Lu. This way, I can at least write a complete report. With that said, Nero threw out a dim soul light ball from the small bag containing her soul. How long can you mark this Prometheus for? Holding the soul light ball, Luochu said indifferently, 3 months. Luochu turned his palm, and a disc about the size of a makeup mirror box appeared in front of Nero. Within 3 months, this thing can help you find its location at any time. Nero picked up another piece of barbecue and stuffed it into her mouth. This was the last piece. Nero didn't hesitate to put away the small disc, and then burped, I'm so full. Thank you for your hospitality. She stood up, raised her hands, and stretched her body. She suddenly squinted and said, By the way, boss, I want to ask you something. I can only match the second form of the Yamato in my hand. How can I fully match its third form? Don't you know? Customer, this question will cost you. The boss said indifferently. Stingy. Nero said. The boss smiled and said nothing. Of course, Nero couldn't see it because of the mask. But she was a free and easy person by nature. At least, she seemed to be so. So she shrugged and said, Well, I'm a regular customer, aren't I? Is there a discount next time? The boss pointed his finger on the table, and a black card with 4 golden seals appeared in front of Nero. Nero waved her hand and took it. Then she tapped her finger on her lips and sent a flying kiss to Boss Luo. What a good boss. Goodbye. Please wait, customer. Boss Luo suddenly stopped Nero. After her surprised look, he nodded to Yu Yi. Miss Maid turned around and left the hall. Not long after, she came out with a tray. Yu Yi lifted the cloth on the tray. There was a palm-sized wooden box about 3 centimeters high engraved with many strange patterns. Is this for me? Nero frowned. What is it? Luochu said, The bag used to store the soul is too rough. You'd better use this one. It's more delicate and can be preserved longer. Nero was stunned. She took the box and asked subconsciously, How much is this? No need. Unexpectedly, the boss said indifferently, This is borrowed for you. It will automatically return to us until your life ends. Of course, it doesn't matter if you refuse. Nero poured the remaining souls in her original bag into the box without saying a word. Then she smiled and said, Ding, congratulations to player Nero for getting an important item from the boss. Box for storing souls get. Is that right? Welcome next time. According to a transaction that Cuck didn't know, he had no way to restore his memories that showed signs of awakening in a few weeks. Although he didn't have the feeling of remembering more recently, but gradually felt confused, Cuck didn't change his current life. He spent most of his time meditating in his room. He would often sit there for half a day, as if he himself was a speck of dust in this room. Only when Xiaoji of the tofu shop knocked on the door out of boredom, there would be some sounds in the room. Although he still couldn't remember his identity and origin, the way he did things seemed to be instinctive. He could keenly feel that San Er was avoiding him. Since she was avoiding, then he would try not to contact her. He was even considering leaving this place in the next few days. Since he met the strange, white-haired woman last time, he had a feeling. The day of his departure was getting closer and closer. Uncle Mark, what story are you going to tell me today? The more familiar this little guy was, the more unscrupulous she seemed to be. As soon as she walked in, she hugged Cuck's arm and shook it. Cuck subconsciously touched Xiaoji's head, and suddenly thought of something. If he left, would Xiaoji be sad? Logically speaking, he shouldn't think about this kind of thing. His thinking pattern had been reminding him of this matter. No story today. Cuck said with a blank expression, Go and find me a piece of wood. He gestured the size on his hand. Xiaoji sucked her fingers and looked at it for a while with her big round eyes before nodding. Then she ran out with her chubby legs. Soon after, Xiaoji came back with a log about 10 centimeters long and about 10 centimeters in diameter. Cuck took the log, then walked to the table, opened the drawer, took out a knife, and sat on the ground. The knife gestured at the log for a while and began to cut it. Xiaoji tilted her neck and looked at Uncle Mark's actions. She knew that Uncle Mark was very powerful. She had secretly seen Uncle Mark lift a tofu board more than 1 meter high with one hand. But Uncle Mark didn't talk much most of the time. "Uncle Mark, what are you doing?" Cuck didn't pay attention to her, but just used the knife to cut the log in his hand. Xiaoji had long been accustomed to his silence. She didn't make a fuss at this time, but directly lay on the ground and held her chin with both hands. Her chubby and soft calves kicked up and down. She looked at Uncle Mark like this and only felt that it was interesting. Gradually, she got tired and simply fell asleep. Cuck stopped the movement of his hands, picked up Xiaoji, put her on the bed, covered her with a quilt, and began to sit on the ground again, carving the wood in his hand. Every time he slashed, wood chips would fly out like fluffy cotton. When he finished the last cut, there was already a pile of wood chips on the ground. Cuck put down the knife, then blew at the last completed wood carving, blowing away the wood dust attached to it, and then put it among the wood chip. This was a swan. It was waving its wings in the wood shavings. It was so lifelike that it looked like a real swan that had landed in the snow. He put this wooden swan in Xiaoji's arms, then picked her up again and sent her back to her room. Cook returned to his room again, swept away the wood shavings on the ground, turned off the lights, and sat there alone. Tomorrow it will probably be like this, Cuck thought silently. He didn't know that a pair of eyes were silently staring at this small tofu shop not far away, not only looking at the dark room where Cuck was, but also looking at San Air, who was busy cleaning up the shop in front of the shop. Why do I suddenly have a feeling that it's not bad for Cuck to go on like this? Sitting cross-legged on the roof of a house, Nero, who was holding a painting tube with both hands, was chewing a cheap bread taken from a nearby canteen at this time. Yamato in the painting tube made a whisper at this time. Of course, only its host, Nero, could hear the whisper. "You want to eat, Cuck?" Nero looked at the painting tube and said mockingly, "Why didn't I see you so energetic when you were in the boss's house?" The painting tube trembled slightly as if it was dissatisfied. "It's very troublesome to eat, Cuck." Nero shook her head and said, "At least the old guys in the club will not let me go. Although I can just escape, it's still very troublesome. Running around the world and being chased or something." Nero lay down with her hands on her head, crossed her legs, and squinted leisurely. Suddenly, she showed a mischievous smile. "But, if Cuck goes crazy, do you think he can beat me?" Chapter 551. There was only one doctor working in the town's health station. As for the nurses, there were several of them. However, except for a young girl who just came back from medical school, the rest were all aunties. Therefore, Zhang Kuan, who had to be hospitalized because of his broken leg after walking at night, had to play with his mobile phone and flirt with the young girl. While the young girl nurse was tidying up the quilt on the bed next to him, Zhang Kuan slapped the young girl's butt with his palm, making a crisp sound. The young girl was shocked and quickly turned around. She saw Zhang Kuan seriously picking up a newspaper that had been flipped through countless times. "Pervert!" The young girl cried and scolded, running out with red eyes. She knew she couldn't do anything to this pervert. Everyone was afraid of this shameless guy. How could this scum not die after falling into the pit and only break his leg? Ha 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 ha! Zhang Kuan laughed at this moment, with his eyes full of lust. "This little girl's butt is so perky. But her appearance is not good. She's really a bitch who won't feel pity even if she dies." But at this moment, Zhang Kuan suddenly heard such a voice. It was very low, as if someone was speaking with a suppressed voice. He couldn't even tell whether it was a man or a woman. He subconsciously looked towards the source of the voice, only to see a guy wearing a coat, a hoodie, and a mask, sitting on the window frame. He was carrying a big black cylinder behind him, and Zhang Kuan didn't know what was in it. But it seemed that he wasn't big and was a little thin. But who was Zhang Kuan? He was recognized in the town as a person who was feared by everyone. He was shameless and naturally domineering. How could he tolerate someone pointing at his nose and scolding him? Good guy, you dare to scold me to my face? You don't know who I am, right? Zhang Kun sneered. Do you believe that I can kill you right away? Unexpectedly, the guy in the coat waved his hand and said, Zhang Kun, I'm not interested in talking nonsense with you here. I'm here to tell you something. Zhang Kun didn't care at all. He picked up the phone and intended to call someone. He was always vengeful. Don't you want to know why you fell into a pit and broke your leg? The guy in the coat said coldly. Zhang Kun was stunned. His finger that was pressing the number suddenly stopped. His eyes were full of haze as he stared at the guy in front of the window sill. Who are you? You don't have to worry about that. The man said indifferently. All you need to know is that I can tell you who did this to you, and I can help you get the woman you want. You mean? Zhang Kun frowned, sans air. Haven't you always wanted to sleep with this woman? This person said sarcastically, but it's not easy for a widow to raise a child. Even if your family has some connections, you don't dare to use force. You're afraid that you won't be able to cover it up and cause public outrage. That's why you didn't use force, right? Why are you helping me? Zhang Kun asked coldly. Of course there is a purpose, the man said indifferently, but don't worry, I won't take a single cent from you, and I won't ask you to do anything for me. In short, I won't harm your interests at all. Moreover, I can make your foot get better immediately. Zhang Kun sneered. Humph, do you think I will casually believe a guy of unknown origin like you? The man suddenly threw a small ball about the size of a finger to Zhang Kun, like a wax seal. Unscrew it and apply the medicine inside to your injury. After one night, you will be able to walk normally. The man chuckled. Believe it or not, you can think about it yourself. I will come again. Wait a minute, Zhang Kun quickly shouted. Unexpectedly, this strange fellow flipped its body and jumped out of the window, disappearing from sight. When Zhang Kun touched the window with the help of something, he couldn't see any trace of the man. He went back to the bed, picked up the small wax pill, and frowned. Early the next morning, Zhang Kun looked out of the window with a kind of anxiety from time to time. He opened the wax pill, thinking that it was just something to apply on the foot and not to eat, so there should be nothing to be afraid of. Therefore, he applied it to the injury with the mentality of giving it a try. Unexpectedly, when he woke up in the morning, his foot didn't hurt anymore. He got out of bed and walked a few steps, and it didn't hinder him at all. He also had no problem running and jumping. This is really too King amazing. Now, he was looking forward to the appearance of this guy in the coat again, but this time, he still had to ask this guy's purpose. He wasn't a guy who could easily trust others. Suddenly, his eyes blurred and something came in. Zhang Kun took a look. Who else could it be if it wasn't the strange man from yesterday? He immediately greeted with a smile. Brother, you are here. You welcome me so much this time? Zhang Kun laughed and said, Yesterday, I didn't know that you are amazing. Now that I have seen it, how can I still show a sour face? Let's not talk about other things, you have cured my leg. I, Zhang Kun, recognize you as my brother. Next time, if you are in town, just say the word, and I will be there immediately. If I don't come, I am a bastard. Sounds really good. The guy in the coat chuckled. But, let's talk about the things that we didn't finish yesterday. Zhang Kun rubbed his hands and said, I also want to know which bastard did this to me. I must take revenge. His name is Mark. The guy in the coat said indifferently, Now he is living in San Air's tofu shop. He is a foreigner. A foreigner? Zhang Kun frowned and suddenly said, Could it be that the guy I met that day is that guy? He actually lived there. Damn. He must have done it. F***ck. Snatching my woman. No wonder he hurt me. It must be San Air's pillow talk. F***ck. This pair of bitches. It seems that you have started to hate her. Zhang Kun punched the bed and said angrily, F***ck. I will call someone to chop this foreigner up." With that, he picked up the phone without saying anything. But when he was about to get through, he suddenly stopped and seemed to be hesitant. The guy in the coat said mockingly, "What? Aren't you going to do it?" Zhang Kun gritted his teeth and said, "This foreigner. I don't know where he came from. He may cause trouble. I have to think about it carefully. Besides, you deliberately want me to deal with this mark, right? You are not stupid. At least you can see it," the guy said indifferently, "but you can rest assured. I have a small matter with this mark. Also, you don't have to be afraid. He has no background. To put it bluntly, he is a person who illegally came here. He can't be exposed. In other words," Zhang Kun said with a murderous look, "in other words, no one will know if he dies? But why should I believe you? Is the medicine last night effective?" the guy in the coat suddenly said. Zhang Kun nodded affirmatively. "I still have a lot in my hands," the guy said indifferently and gave Zhang Kun 2 wax pills. He then said, "Treating your injury is a small matter. For more serious injuries, even if you were stabbed by a knife, it will heal quickly. I can give it to you. Whether I keep it for my own use or sell it for money, this is a treasure." Zhang Kun, who had already used it, was convinced of the medicinal properties of this medicine. He suddenly showed a greedy look. "What do you want me to do?" "It's very simple," the guy sneered. "First you do as I say." The two talked for about 20 minutes in the room. In the end, Zhang Kun showed a sinister look. He held the 2 magical wax pills in his hand and watched the weirdo leave. He immediately began to make a call to ask his underlings to do it. Xiao, taking off her coat and unbuttoning her mask, Nero, who had the name of Tyrant, sat under the bridge of the only river in the town. "Are you stupid? How can I give you the TVR4 medicine so easily? The latter 2 are just batter." Nero showed a little devilish smile, squinting at her reflection in the river. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she seemed to see a light blue halo in her pupils. Nero frowned. Her face was closer to the river. She stretched out her hand and closed her eyes, but she couldn't see anything. No. She blinked and didn't feel any discomfort. She thought it might be an illusion brought by the refraction of the light in the river, so she didn't continue to care. "And let's take a nap first? Master, it's time for lunch." When Yu Ye's voice sounded, Boss Luo slowly opened his eyes and withdrew his vision. From Nero's perspective. Chapter 552. As the boss of the club, Luocchio's ability improved with the number of transactions. If he wanted to observe something, he naturally didn't need to use such trouble. He needed to use another perspective. At the beginning, planting the spiritual seed in Nero was just a move of Luocchio's mind. He took the opportunity to inject a large amount of transaction information into Nero and implanted this perspective seed. This was the first time that Luocchio tried to switch to Nero's perspective to observe. And to his surprise, when he used Nero's perspective, he had a completely different feeling. He seemed to have found the feeling before he became the boss of the club. But when his perspective returned to himself, everything once again returned to extreme silence, like the water in an ancient well, almost stagnant water. Perhaps through Nero's perspective, he could find or even solve the problem of his emotions being stripped. Boss Luo suddenly stopped and looked at Yu Yi, who was cutting the roasted lamb leg for him. He seemed to be a little absent-minded. "Master, is there any problem?" Yu Yi asked softly as she put a piece of finely cut lamb on the plate in front of her master. Luocchio shook his head and calmly praised, "It's just a feeling. You're also very beautiful today." Yu Yi nodded with a smile and accepted the praise. And he was the boss of the club again. For Xiaoji, she had a lot of treasures. Children who were still in the nursery always had the so-called treasures that adults couldn't understand. Xiaoji's current treasure was a very good-looking wooden swan. This was given to her by Uncle Mark. Since she got it, Xiaoji didn't let this wooden swan leave her small bag. But today there was one thing that made Xiaoji unhappy, That was, the other children in the nursery bullied her. The thing was, the nursery teacher asked everyone to draw their own parents with crayons in the afternoon, but until the end, Xiaoji didn't draw a complete picture. Haha, Xiaoji doesn't have a father. Xiaoji didn't finish her homework, she's a bad child. Children, be quiet, don't bully Xiaoji like this. Ha 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 ha. The teacher in the classroom couldn't even stop so many children from heckling. If she scolded, these children would be scared and cry. Even if she spoke nicely, she would not be able to control the other side. Looking at Xiaoji, who had lowered her head and tears welled up in her eyes, the teacher felt both heartache and anxiety. Unexpectedly, at this time, Xiaoji overturned the small children's desk on the ground and rushed to the boy who shouted the most fiercely. The two little guys suddenly wrestled together. The result was naturally out of control. When San Er received the call, she didn't care about the tofu shop's business. She quickly closed the door and put on her slippers. She didn't even take off the apron on her body and hurried over. I'm sorry, my child is too naughty. I'm sorry. Obviously, she didn't intend to let her to calm her son's mother, who finally gave birth to a boy in her 30s. And finally gave birth to a boy of a boy. Of the mother, who finally gave birth to a boy in her 30s, of her to give birth to a boy to the mother, who was to give birth a boy. Was to apologize. To be angry to be a child's to of two's idle be a child of a at to be a child? To be a s. She's so rude at such a young age. What will happen when she grows up? Do you have time to take care of your child because you're busy sleeping with him every day? Please show some respect, okay? San Er's eyes were a little red as she stared at the other party. Respect? The woman's face became more and more ugly. Respect requires dignity. Who doesn't know that you're hiding a foreign man at home? How is it? Does that man make you feel good? Say it. You bitch. Unexpectedly, Xiaoji grabbed the woman's thigh at this time and bit down hard. You bastard! How dare you bite me? I'll beat you to death. The woman stretched out her hand and pulled Xiaoji up, raising her hand to hit her. Don't hit my daughter. San Er couldn't stand it anymore. She rushed over and grabbed Xiaoji back. I have to teach her a lesson today. The woman was also evil. She showed a fierce face and grabbed San Er's hair with one hand. Stop it. If you continue to do this, I'll call the police. The teacher said anxiously. If you go to the police station, it won't be good for everyone, right? Let's talk nicely. Probably this kind of violent mechanism had an inexplicable deterrence for a fierce housewife. When the woman heard it, she let go of San Er bitterly. She pulled up her son with one hand and said coldly, I'll call my husband to go to your broken shop later and argue with you. Xiaoji was probably scared. She grabbed San Er's clothes and buried her face in it, crying. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. It's okay, it's okay. San Er comforted her softly. The teacher could only sigh at this time and said, Sister-in-law, it's okay. She just said some polite words. If she looks for you, remember to tell me. I'll help you. San Er looked at the teacher gratefully, but she didn't expect too much. This teacher. She was a teacher, but in fact, she was just a worker in the nursery. She didn't even have a kindergarten teacher certificate. Her home was also here. How could she offend others casually? San Er sighed silently, nodded to the teacher, and then left with Xiaoji. On the way home, even if San Er held Xiaoji's hand, she still lowered her head all the way. San Er didn't speak. She just held her daughter's hand and felt that the road was much longer than before. Mom. I'm sorry, Xiaoji said with a crying tone. San Er said, What are you sorry for? Xiaoji hugged San Er's calf and cried, Xiaoji shouldn't hit people, Xiaoji shouldn't bite people. But that auntie is too bad. She scolded Mom. Xiaoji is so sad, so sad. It's okay, it's okay. San Er squatted down, hugged Xiaoji, patted Xiaoji's back gently, and whispered, "It's okay, Mom is fine." Xiaoji sniffed at this time and said with grievance, "Mom, why don't you ask Uncle Mark to be my dad?" Sanair was stunned. She moved her lips and said a little louder. She was anxious and angry. "Why do you say this?" Because if Xiaoji has a dad, no one will laugh at Xiaoji for not having a dad." Xiaoji lowered her head and said, "No one will bully Mom. Mom, I want to have a dad." Sanair's eyes turned red. She picked up Xiaoji and put her on her shoulder, not letting her see her face. She held back her sadness and whispered, "Xiaoji, be a good girl. Mommy will make meatballs for you when we go home, okay?" This was probably a good way to distract Xiaoji's attention. She nodded and said, "I want to eat sweet." "Okay, I'll make sweet ones." Xiaoji threw herself into Sanair's arms and fell asleep unconsciously. Sanair went home with a lot on her mind. Thinking of what Xiaoji said, she couldn't help but think of the sadness along the way. She couldn't help crying silently. How could she not want to have someone to rely on? But Mark was too mysterious and dreamy for her. Sanair shook her head. When she returned to the front of the tofu shop, she saw a lot of people gathered in front of her shop, pointing and discussing. Sanair didn't dare to immediately go forward and ask what had happened. She just quietly looked in front of her shop. With this look, Sanair immediately turned pale with fright. This was because, at some point in time, someone had used red spray paint to write a large number of ugly words on the door of her shop. Shameless. Slut, cheating couple. Bitch, who did this? Sanair couldn't imagine it at all. She was even more afraid that these neighbors would find out that she was here. She was afraid that they would look at her. Thinking of that scene, Sanair felt cold all over, and her whole body trembled with fear. "Mom, haven't you reached home yet?" Xiaoji, who was in his arms, seemed to hear the movement and woke up. Sanair quickly pressed her head, then turned and ran into the alley. She circled around and returned to the back door of her tofu shop from the back alley. But here, she also saw big red words written all over it. Sanair opened the door crazily, then closed the door without saying anything. She pulled the door bolt, sat down against the door, hugged her daughter, and sobbed painfully. Mom, what's wrong with you? Mom. Xiaoji is so scared, don't cry, okay?" She just hugged her daughter tighter. Mom. Chapter 553. When it was late at night and Xiaoji had fallen asleep, Sanair fetched a bucket of water, took a brush and detergent, and quietly came to the back door. These red words in front of the door. She could only choose this time to brush them by herself, otherwise she couldn't do business tomorrow. This kind of thing, a woman should do it. She had to do everything by herself. But when she went to the back and was about to open the door, she found that the door was unlocked. This gave Sanair a fright, and she even heard some strange sounds. Sanair suddenly held a shoulder pole in her hand and carefully looked through the crack of the door. But what she saw was Mark. He lit a fire and water lamp and put it on the ground. He was holding a brush in his hand. He was washing the red words on the wall. Squeak. It was the sound of the door axle when the wooden door was pushed. "You!" Sanair came out. Mark. Cuck just glanced at her and didn't stop his movements. He continued to brush the red words on the wall. Seeing that Mark didn't say anything, Sanair silently took out the water she had fetched and washed silently on the other side. If there was light, the words written on the paint were very dazzling and red, just like the blood attached to the wall. Sanair's eyes turned red, and she felt uncomfortable in her heart. Then she brushed the brush hard. She didn't know how long it took. Suddenly Sanair heard Mark's voice. He said, "I will leave here tomorrow morning." Sanair's body shook slightly, but she didn't say anything. She just brushed harder. "Don't stay in this place. It's not suitable for you." Sanair heard Mark's voice again. Her movements slowed down a little, and she smiled bitterly. "Leave? Where can I go? I don't know anything. How can I live outside?" The ability of human survival is always beyond our imagination. San stopped and looked at Mark. This tall, mysterious, and powerful man seemed to be very persuasive when he said this. But it's easy to say. I have to take care of my daughter. How can I live outside? San seemed to be protesting, and the grievances in her heart were gradually magnified. I don't know anyone outside. There is no one I can talk to. How can you teach me how to live? You also have no one to talk to here. Mark was still as indifferent as ever. San threw the brush into the bucket and sat on the steps of the back door. She covered her face and wept. She heard the words that were extremely uncomfortable for her. He frowned. Looking at San appearance, he subconsciously walked forward. But he suddenly stopped. On the one hand, he felt that comforting San would bring a lot of unnecessary involvement. On the other hand, it was because he heard some small, approaching footstep. Cook turned around abruptly. He saw 4 men with their faces wrapped in a simple towel, carrying crowbars and a bucket as they groped their way over. "Who are you?" Cook shouted in a deep voice. The 3 people dressed like this in the middle of the night were naturally not good people. When they heard the shout, not only were they not afraid, they looked at each other and walked forward without fear. There were 4 of them, and they even had crowbars. How could they be afraid of a foreigner? San heard the sound and quickly looked over. Suddenly, her face was filled with fear. She subconsciously stood up. "Are these things on the wall also written by you?" Cook asked indifferently at this time. The 4 masked men didn't say a word. They just rushed over and waved the crowbars in their hands. It seemed that they had been fighting like this for a long time. They had a bit of fierce momentum. Cook frowned slightly, but he was not afraid. He turned his eyes and saw the pole that San had just taken out. Now it was leaning against the wall, so he gently kicked it with his foot. He took the end of the pole and flew over. At the moment when the pole was in his hand, Cook suddenly felt a little absent-minded. It was a feeling that he was very familiar with. He felt that he used to have such a posture often. But he didn't have time to think about it, facing the attack of the 4 masked men. The pole rotated in Cook's hand. A kind of fanatical fierceness that flowed through his body emerged from the depths of his body, driving his body instinctively. So he moved. In a flash, this ordinary-looking pole transformed into a hummingbird that soared into the sky, charging straight for a masked man's shoulder. With one strike, the masked man was sent flying a distance of 2 to 3 meters. There was a scream. The man's shoulder was almost all broken because of this terrible impact. The masked man only remembered to scream before he fainted from the pain. When the other 3 saw this, they were even more ferocious. 3 crowbars smashed toward Cook's head at the same time. It wasn't a good trick, but it was a desperate way to beat someone who had been practicing for many years. Cook gave a light hum. The pole in his hand was like an agile snake. He quickly pointed 3 times. It was as if he had gone through precise calculations. Without exception, he pointed at the same position of the 3 masked men's wrists. Moreover, the iron crowbar in their hands was knocked away at the same time. The 3 men screamed at the same time. They painfully grabbed their wrists, feeling as if they had been hit by a stone. The 3 crowbars fell at this time. Cook picked them up one by one with the pole. The 3 crowbars seemed to be glued to the pole and twisted around it one after another. Cook suddenly swung the crowbars down. With a bang, the 3 crowbars were inserted vertically into the old stone bricks in the alley, like 3 incense sticks, standing in front of the 3 masked men. The 3 men were suddenly shocked. How could they care about the fierceness of the pole? They rolled and crawled to help their companion, who had fainted early and rushed into the alley. Cook wanted to catch up, but at this moment, he suddenly felt a splitting headache, as if his head was going to explode. How could he care to catch up? He supported his body with the pole, reached out and pinched his eyebrows, motionless. Mark, how are you? After a long time, San just came out. She was so scared that her face was pale. At this time, she nervously patted Mark's shoulder. So he suddenly opened his eyes and shook his head. The feeling of headache had eased a lot. He felt that something wanted to rush out from the depths of his mind, but it seemed that there was a big net covering these things that were very important to him. Who are they? Sanair asked in horror at this time. Cuck frowned and walked to the white oil barrel that was left here by the four-masked guys. He opened it and sniffed it, then looked up at Sanair and asked, "Did you offend anyone? This is gasoline. They should want to set it on fire." Set it on fire. Sanair was so scared that she couldn't stand still. But at this time, the neighbor's house suddenly lit up. Cook saw it and quickly said, "Let's go inside first." He quickly lifted the barrel of gasoline, picked up the bucket with the pole, and took Sanair into the back door without hesitation and pulled down the door bolt. Cook still looked very calm. But Sanair was at a loss. "Think about it seriously. Who could it be?" Cook asked again. Sanair calmed down and subconsciously thought of the quarrel with someone in the nursery and almost beaten up, but she denied it after thinking about it carefully. First of all, the time was too late. It was impossible for the other party to arrange someone to write those insults in front of her house in such a short time after she came back from the nursery. Moreover, if someone set a fire because of such a small matter, it would be too unreasonable. "I don't know." Sanair shook her head helplessly. Cook pondered for a moment and said directly, "Make sure that the door of the house is locked. I will walk around outside. In addition, I won't leave tomorrow." Sanair was stunned. When she was about to speak, she saw Mark reach out and pick up the pole. He pushed the door open and walked out. This back gave her an unprecedented sense of security. Putting down the binoculars, Nero's pupils flashed a faint blue halo, but she still didn't notice it. Instead, she narrowed her eyes and smiled slightly. Aha, in the end, he couldn't help but make a move. Miss Tyrant laughed softly, and the plan in her heart seemed to be enriched again. "You must thank me, Cook. I am the person who gave you a foreign relationship." Chapter 554. Miss Tyrant, who was carrying the painting tube, strolled around Sanair's house. After putting down some things, she left quietly. With a smile, she smiled like a naughty child who had just successfully stolen a watermelon from someone else's field. Sanair turned on a wall lamp in the living room on the first floor of the tofu shop. She held a kitchen knife in her hands and watched the second hand of the clock on the wall turn. Her eyelids closed again, and she was already sleepy. Suddenly, she heard a knock on the door. After being shocked, she found that it was Mark who came back. Sanair was slightly relieved. "Drink a glass of water first." Sanair poured a glass of warm water for Mark and took a sip herself. She had been nervous for most of the night, and she didn't drink a drop of water herself. There should be no one nearby. "You can have a good rest later." But Sanair sat down worriedly. She still looked worried. What should I do? Should I go to the police station tomorrow?" It seemed that Cook had been avoiding dealing with this kind of mechanism instinctively. He said calmly, "You don't know who is dealing with you. It may not be useful to report this kind of thing to the police." Then what should I do?" "You go to rest first. I will guard in the second half of the night. If someone comes again, I will catch him this time. When tomorrow is daytime, the enemy will not dare to be blatant, so at least there is still a day to inquire in the town." Cook thought. Sanair nodded. She, who was out of her wits, subconsciously listened to the words of this powerful man. He was really very powerful. The way he used the shoulder pole to deal with the four people just now was not like an ordinary person. Sanair quietly came to Xiaoji's room and sat on the bed. She planned to sleep here tonight. Cook was used to sitting quietly. At this time, he just moved from the room to the small yard behind the tofu shop. Although it was in the open and at night, the cold seemed to have no effect on him. Sitting on the ground, he still held the carrying pole in his hand. He closed his eyes and remained motionless, like a statue. After an unknown period of time, Cook's eyelids trembled slightly. He gently opened his eyes and frowned. He suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. It was late at night, very late, but the cold water flowed along the skin, all the way from the cheeks to the collarbone, and then continued to leave the towering chest, and then the lower abdomen. The cold water flowed all the way down, making San Air couldn't help but let out a soft moan. She was burning like fire, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. It was so uncomfortable that even in this kind of weather, she had unknowingly dripped with sticky sweat. This was the restlessness of her body. San Air was very clear about this kind of restlessness. Most of the time, she would choose to take a cold shower to cool herself down. Only on rare occasions would she choose to solve the problem by herself. But this night, she could only use the usual method. She secretly hated herself for choosing this time. She couldn't get rid of the image of Mark's imposing back when he defeated the bad guys in the latter half of the night. She raised her head and let the water spray onto her body. She only felt that after it cooled down slightly, she became more comfortable. San Air simply let her body completely stick to the porcelain of the bathroom, then took off the shower and subconsciously let the strong and powerful water spray onto her chest. The skin that was strongly stimulated suddenly stood up with small cold particles. San Air felt that her breathing suddenly became rapid. When the bud was sprayed by the slender but strong water, it reacted naturally and gradually became firm. She was still gasping for air, and in her hazy state, her fingers had already touched her chest. Men would never be able to understand their own bodies better than women. The water from the gap between her palms and her chest was like water passing through a ravine. It slowly flowed down with the residual warmth of her body. It left a trail between her legs, and then really landed on the floor tiles. She had sat completely on the ground, closed her eyes, and felt the strong stimulation brought by the fingers teasing her chest. Her bright lips were sometimes closed, sometimes opened, and sometimes bit. His legs, which were lying flat on the white tiles, suddenly became restless. The two thighs were like two intertwined snakes, slowly rubbing against each other. Perhaps the simple spraying of breasts and caressing could no longer calm the desire in her heart. San Air's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She put down the shower in her hands, and at the same time, her face was flushed, and she opened her legs. She used the strong water spray from the shower to tightly stick to the most private part of her body. She felt that this place was Canaan. She didn't remember why she thought of Canaan. She only occasionally remembered a story told by a priest who came to the town a long time ago. There was rich milk and honey, there was the promised land, there was life, yes, the more intense the stimulation, the more fertile the promised land became. This land that had brought life was now filled with milk and honey. She was like a wanderer who had traveled a long and arduous journey, and finally found the promised land that belonged to her. When she saw the incomparably delicious honey, she was filled with excitement and palpitations as she reached out to grab it, to grab the sweetness that belonged to her. She even imagined that at this moment there was another broad palm on her palm, and the fingers were entangled with each other, gently rubbing. Like a dream, she was opening the forbidden area of her body, exploring a trace of joy. La 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 long. Bang. The last bang was very light, but it was enough to disturb San Air, who was immersed in this quiet environment. This was the sound of the outside door being closed. Even though it was very light, she could still distinguish it clearly. San Air subconsciously looked at the door of the bathroom, only to see a pair of feet stamping in the crack of the door. At this moment, San Air tried to suppress her breath, but her heart was beating wildly. But the feet, after pausing for a while, turned around and intended to leave. "Don't go." San Air made a sorrowful voice, threw away the showerhead in her hand, and grabbed the lock handle on the bathroom door. "Don't go." She knew that the person outside was Mark. She didn't know how long she had been hiding in the bathroom, but the only thing she was sure of was that she couldn't control herself at this moment. Both his mind and body were thirsting for something. Hearing San Air's voice, Cuck took a deep breath. After sitting quietly for half a night, he couldn't calm down the heat in his body, so he also wanted to wash his face with cold water to sober up. "Don't go." The sound of the door opening, and a force with impact, was not big like pouncing on his back. This was what Cuck felt at this time. San Air's wet body was completely attached to Cuck's back. The thin clothes couldn't prevent the water from penetrating. "Don't go," he heard her moaning voice, and at the same time felt San Air's fingers moving on his body. Her fingers seemed to be searching for something. And this kind of searching was more like a clear signal to him. A signal that easily destroyed his usual calmness. The wildness hidden in his body had been ignited in an instant. Cuck finally panted uncomfortably and grabbed San Air's hand. Turning around, with the help of the bathroom light, looking at the wet, delicate, prepared body, Cuck exhaled a hot breath, clasped San Air's face with both hands, and lowered his head to invade the plump lips. It was like a combination of wind and rain. Two different but gradually similar panting sounds became louder and louder in the small corridor, as if it was an amplified beat. The kiss between them was so intense that Cuck arched his body, covered San Air's chest with his palms, pressed her against the wall, and kissed her collarbone and neck. San Air subconsciously began to tear his clothes. She was excited but clumsy to untie the belt around his waist. She reached out to grab the key that could further open the promised land in her body. Suddenly, Cuck violently turned San Air around and pressed her body against the wall. He grabbed her left hand with one hand and pierced her body with the other with his waist. When the door of the forbidden area opened, he and she returned to the most primitive state. They had been maintaining this posture. This was a posture that San Air had never tried before, and she had never thought that she would have sex with a man in such a place, even if it was her home. An experience that she had never had, but it was extremely compatible with her body, made her tense all her nerves and magnified all her feelings. She was really greedy for a sound of joy. Over and over again, she had already been immersed in this strong and powerful collision. In the end, she felt his hot body lying on top of her from behind, and the fierce heat that spurted out of her body, and she finally cried out. This was the saddest sound she had ever made in all the climaxes she had experienced in her life. When it was over, the small corridor outside the bathroom returned to silence. He and she didn't say anything. Yen PS1. Please ignore the title of this chapter. Of course, you can study it if you want. PS2. I've made a deal with Boss Luo. You'll forget what you've read after reading this chapter. I won't admit that I've written this, either. Chapter 555. Trash. A bunch of trash. 4 people can't even deal with one person, and all of you came back with injuries. Zhang Kuan was very angry. Looking at the few underlings in front of him, he was even angrier. Boss, you don't know, that foreigner is too good at using the shoulder pole. Even with a crowbar, we were no match for him. Look at him, look at his shoulder, I think it must be broken. Zhang Kuan frowned. This guy who was the most seriously injured hadn't woken up yet, but when he saw the wound from his clothes, Zhang Kuan's back was cold. You, quickly take him to see the doctor. Zhang Kuan waved his hand, but quickly changed his words. Don't go to the town. You drive the motorcycle to the neighboring town, don't look at him here. Whatever the doctor asks you, just say that he was hit by a bike. Got it? I got it, boss. Zhang Kuan didn't intend to use the 2 wax pills he got from the mysterious man. He felt that it was not worth it to use such a good thing on his underlings. Motherf *Ker. This foreigner is actually so good at fighting. After watching the 2 people leave, Zhang Kuan sat down angrily, and the remaining 2 underlings quickly poured a glass of water for him. Brother, I think this foreigner is not simple. Should we not provoke him? Bullying the kind and fearing the evil, this had always been the standard for their actions. He then said with a ferocious expression, Besides, brother, if you really like that little girl San, we brothers will secretly help you kidnap her. When the time comes, won't you be able to play with her however you want? When you are tired of her, you can throw her back. This kind of widow, do you dare to go around telling others? Even if you do it, it will be useless. Is this interesting? Zhang Kuan snorted. A bunch of ignorant things. Get out, don't bother me. The two underlings looked at each other, their wrists were also hurt badly, so when they heard this, they didn't want to stay, so they went to find a place to heal themselves. Zhang Kuan drank a bottle of jiujiang here, peeled a few peanuts and ate them. While eating, he felt that it was tasteless, so he suddenly swept all the things on the table to the ground. It looks like you failed. You again. The moment he heard the voice, Zhang Kuan glared fiercely. As expected, the guy in the coat appeared at the window again. Of course, this time, the window was in his house. Zhang Kuan walked up angrily. I've done everything you asked me to do. What's the result? I didn't get anything. My men were also injured. You didn't tell me that this foreigner was so hard to deal with. Wearing a coat. Nero chuckled. Are you stupid? If it wasn't difficult, would I give you that kind of medicine as a reward? Do you really think it's a pie that fell from the sky? Only then did Zhang Kuan suppress his anger. Tell me honestly, where did this foreigner come from? Nero chuckled again. Zhang Kuan said angrily, What are you laughing at? Nero mocked, I'm laughing at you, you trash. I'm laughing at you for having nowhere to vent your frustrations. I just passed by that tofu shop and heard the commotion inside. It was really intense. A man and a woman, tsk. Do you want to take a look? Maybe these two people haven't finished yet. You. Zhang Kuan's eyes were as big as a cow's. He reached over the window frame and wanted to grab Nero's neck. But he didn't know how terrifying the person he wanted to catch was. Nero didn't even use her hand directly. She just pressed Zhang Kuan's arm with the painting tube and pressed his arm directly against the window frame. She pressed it heavily. Zhang Kuan suddenly broke into a cold sweat because of the pain. He felt that his arm was about to break. He looked at her in horror. This guy's strength is beyond imagination. Nero said indifferently at this time, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I asked you to do these things at the beginning just to make the woman in the tofu shop unable to stand the rumors and choose to separate from Cook. But you are too useless and failed. Then there is no other way. I can only change my mind temporarily. What do you want me to do? Nero said, If Cook is here all day you can't get San Air. Do you believe it? Of course, even if Cook is not here, you can't get San Air. But she didn't intend to say this sentence. You want me to kill him? Zhang Kuan's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. Obviously, he was just hesitating, not because of fear. No, you can't deal with him. Nero shook her head and said, But just help me lure him out? Of course, it will be better if you can irritate him. In the end, I will deal with him myself. The angry and even crazy owner of Thousand Thorns' spear. Thinking of Cook in that state, Nero couldn't help but let out a low and crazy laugh. This kind of anger and madness was impossible if Cook was sober. As a divine general of the club, Nero knew too well how difficult it was to break through Cook's almost perfect state of mind. With that said, Nero pushed Zhang Kuan directly to the ground with the painting tube and turned away. If you still want your benefits and San Air, do as I say. Otherwise, I don't know the consequences. Zhang Kuan got up in horror. At this time, he could still see her. She came and went without a trace. Ah, I'm looking forward to it. Under the moonlight, Nero sat on the edge of someone else's rooftop, stretched, and then suddenly turned around. She pulled open the leather jacket on her body and stopped when the zipper reached her belly. As for the inside, it was not the common women's underwear, but a white cloth wrapped around it. It turned out to be a bandage binding her chest. She reached into her chest and dug out a black card after a while. Nero stood up and pulled back her zipper. Then, she gently tapped the black card with her finger and said with a smile, boss, can you hear me?" But Nero waited for a while, but there was nothing in front of her. The black card didn't seem to have any reaction. She couldn't help but mutter, Is there a distance limit? It's so troublesome to walk back." Of course not. But at this moment, Nero turned around. Standing behind her was the new boss of the club, Luocchio. Who else could it be? "Hello, Miss Nero," Luocchio said softly. "Excuse me, is there anything I can do for you?" "There's a business." Nero narrowed her eyes and licked the black card gently with the tip of her tongue. She smiled charmingly. "Do you want to do it?" "Of course." Boss Luo nodded. "We won't refuse the customer's request." "Ah, what a good boss." Nero blinked and said, "I'm thinking, if one day I can't survive, I'll sell myself to you, okay? You'll protect me, right?" "Of course, as long as it's your request." Boss Luo's extremely official answer. "Thank you." Chapter 556. It was a dream. The sunlight was a little dazzling. San Er's eyelids moved and then opened. What she saw was her daughter Xiaoji's sparkling eyes. It turned out that she was lying on the bed, holding her chin and looking at her. Seeing San Er wake up, Xiaoji smiled sweetly. "Good morning, Mom." She hadn't slept with her mother for a long time. Probably after she started going to the nursery? Her mother said that she wanted to have a meeting to be independent. San Er reached out and tapped on Xiaoji's nose. She felt that it was good to see her daughter for the first time in a new day. "Mom, what are you laughing at?" "What am I laughing at?" "You were laughing when you were asleep. Did you have a good dream?" San Er recalled what happened in the second half of the night. It was crazy to think about it now. How could she be so active? Wasn't this the same as what those people outside were saying? A feeling of guilt made San Er get up subconsciously. She was going to get dressed and said, "I will cook for you." "Oh, then I will go and play with Uncle Mark," Xiaoji thought. San Er said indifferently, "He didn't sleep all night. Don't disturb him. Come and cook with Mom." When everything was over, they hugged each other silently for about 10 minutes. Then Mark returned to the yard silently. It was not until dawn that San Er heard some movements. She thought that he probably went back to his room. When he went out with Xiaoji, the door of the other room opened at the same time. San Er saw Mark walking out with no expression. They looked at each other. "I will go out and see the situation. You stay at home and don't go anywhere. Today, don't do business for the time being." San Er nodded silently. Mark didn't smile. He was still the same as before, as if nothing had happened. She heard that foreigners were very casual about those things. It was likely that they really didn't care about it. San Er couldn't help but think about it. She couldn't suppress her thoughts. He originally said that he would leave today. San Er looked at Mark's back and suddenly thought that maybe in a few days, he would still leave. "Be careful when you go out," San Er blurted out subconsciously and said to the back of the figure. Mark paused for a moment, but he didn't turn around. He just nodded and left. San Er was still staring blankly. She felt that she had missed something. Xiaoji looked at her mother curiously. It was the first time she heard her mother nagging Uncle Mark. She giggled and said, "Mom, you and Uncle Mark seem to be getting along better." This was good because Xiaoji understood it well, but San Er had a different feeling when she heard it. She raised her hand shyly and pretended to spank him. "Why aren't you washing your face and brushing your teeth? I'm going to spank your little butt." "Wow!" Xiaoji giggled and ran away. San Er had not seen such a lively Xiaoji when she woke up in the morning for a long time. At the same time, Nero in the distance put down the binoculars in his hand and reached out to Luocchio, who was standing next to him. Luocchio shook his head. Nero shrugged and said, "Such good eyesight, it must be good for peeping." The business was going on, but Nero invited him to watch an old-fashioned show led by her. But even if she said it was old-fashioned, the tyrant's excitement could not be fake. "What a beautiful house!" Luocio looked at the buildings in this town at this time. This was a kind of building that was almost invisible in the big city. It had not really been developed into a tourist attraction. There was not much garbage on the road, so it was naturally cleaner. It's a pity. No matter how beautiful the house is, if the people living in it have bad intentions, it's useless. Nero smiled and said, "You should know this better than me, right?" The boss did not respond. Nero was not surprised at all. She simply jumped onto the wall of the temple on the roof of the house and sat cross-legged to look into the distance. It's so interesting. If an old woman suddenly dies of old age, and her husband can only raise her child alone, the people around her will always say that she is unfortunate and will be very enthusiastic to help her. But if it's a woman who happens to be in her youth, the situation is different. Although there will still be a lot of help, there will be a lot of discussion behind her back. Nero narrowed her eyes and looked at Boss Luo. She suddenly asked, in the same situation, but with a difference in age, why is the result different? I'm talking about the same situation. Miss Nero, do you want to say something? Nero shrugged again and said, I just want to ask you, which situation do you prefer? Don't tell me there is a charge? This question I have no obligation to answer. Luocio shook his head indifferently. Nero slapped her thigh at this time and laughed. Ah, yes, you can refuse to answer. Anyway, I don't really want to buy your answer. Ha. Thus, she stood up, stretched, and rubbed her stomach. Before we officially begin, do you want to eat breakfast? I found a noodle shop here that is not bad. Shall I treat you? Boss Luo shook his head and said, Thank you, someone has already prepared it for me. Then, see you later, Miss Nero. That's great, is it Miss Maid again? Nero didn't mind. Instead, she teased, if I have such a perfect woman, I'll be reluctant to let her go. See you later, boss. She was more like a friend who had known each other for a long time. She didn't fear the club, didn't have much vigilance, didn't have prejudice as soon as she entered the game, and even planned to treat the boss to breakfast. Perhaps a lot of it was because of her nature, but this was indeed the first such customer that Luocio had encountered so far. Master, did you encounter something happy? Miss Maid, who was preparing the meal, saw the master come back. After taking off the mask, she asked curiously with a smile. Luocio sat down and smiled. Our Miss Nero just praised you. Thank you very much. Yu nodded. So the boss began to eat with the help of Miss Maid. Anyway, it's like this. It's like this every day. These two guys won't get tired of it. It's like they're made from the same mold. Anyway, they've forgotten about me. Anyway, I'm going to continue to be hung here. The words of a certain newbie who was hung from the ceiling and covered in dust. If this place hadn't been very clean, Taiyinzi would have suspected that there was a spider web on his body. Go and get married. Bastard! When are you going to put me down? Cuck was walking in the town. Along the way, many busybodies pointed at his back, but he had a strong heart and didn't respond to this kind of discussion. He saw a policeman from the police station patrolling on the street on a bicycle, so he walked into an alley quickly and began to think about the next thing. When those guys left last night, they didn't have time to take away their tools. As for gasoline, it should be easy to get. As for the crowbar, it was brand new with a label on it, as if it had just been bought. There were only a few hardware stores in the town, so it wasn't difficult to check. Besides, if he bought 4 crowbars at one time, and it was in recent days, the businessman should have an impression. Cuck gradually had a clue about what to do next. Do you want to buy something small? Big brother. As soon as he walked out of the alley, an old lady with a stall outside the alley shouted at Cuck. The old lady seemed to have bad eyesight. After seeing clearly that it was a foreign minister, she looked at him curiously. Cuck glanced at her casually, then he didn't stay and left directly. Chapter 557. Before noon, Cuck returned to the tofu shop again. When he came in, he found that San Er and Xiaoji were sitting at the dining table. The food on the table seemed to be much richer than before. But Xiaoji had been holding a spoon and staring at the table full of food. Obviously, she had been hungry for a long time. Xiaoji pounced on Kuk at once. Kuk did not avoid her and let her pull his hand to the table. "Let's eat," Saner said at this time. "Xiaoji, you go over there and watch TV first. I have something to talk to Uncle Mark." "Xiaoji wants to listen too." Xiaoji raised her hand. "Xiaoji." Saner glared. Xiaoji pouted and walked to the TV with the rice bowl. She turned it on very loudly and didn't look back. Saner sighed at the man in front of her and whispered, Have you found anything?" Kuk shook his head at this time and said calmly, "I went to the hardware store and asked. I probably know who bought the crowbar." "Who is it?" Saner suddenly became nervous. Kuk said, "I don't know, but I will go and have a look in the afternoon." For him, how could he just ask such a thing in the morning? In fact, he also went to the hospital. Last night, a guy was seriously injured by him. It was impossible to just apply some medicine on him. It was just that the health station in the town did not accommodate seriously injured patients. That was to say, the seriously injured guy was likely to be sent to another place overnight, possibly to the town next door. In addition, because the health station was not big, Kuk easily found a guy who should still be lying in the hospital. He was inexplicably discharged, and seemed to be fully recovered. "When I was away, did anyone come?" Kuk then asked. Saner shook her head and said, "Why don't you sit down and eat something first? It's almost 1 o'clock. Kuk nodded and reached out to put some food on the table on the bowl. "I'll go back to my room to eat." Saner turned her head away. "Here, it's okay." Kuk said calmly, "No need." Saner didn't say anything more. She just sat down uncomfortably and silently ate the white rice without taking any food. Before going upstairs, Kuk suddenly said, "Xiaoji, catch it? I bought it on the way." A small thing flew towards Xiaoji and gently landed in front of her. Xiaoji, who was originally a little angry, suddenly smiled. "Mom, Uncle Mark gave me a doll." Saner looked at it and suddenly felt happy. She smiled and said, "Silly girl, this is a keychain, not a doll." About an hour later, Cook came down from upstairs, said that he was going out, and went out. "Mom, why is Uncle Mark going out all the time today?" "He has something to do." Saner squatted down and whispered, "Don't ask, okay? Your Uncle Mark is protecting us." Xiaoji thought for a while. "Really? Really? Really? Really, really? Like Daddy, protecting Xiaoji and Mommy?" Saner just touched Xiaoji's head and suddenly rolled up her sleeves. "Don't go to the nursery today. Mom won't do business. Let's make something delicious and wait for Uncle Mark to come back, okay?" "Okay." Xiaoji learned to make porridge when Mommy was sick last time. Saner smiled and said that Xiaoji was so obedient. Since when did she not have the mood of looking forward to a person coming back and wanting to make a sumptuous dinner for him? Suddenly there was a knock on the door, but it was at the back door of the yard. What Saner knew was that Mark seemed to be used to leaving from the back door every time. She suddenly shook her head and felt that her face was a little hot. "Back so soon? Did you forget to take something? Is Uncle Mark back?" Xiaoji opened the door. "Hey Xiaoji, don't walk so fast." "Xiaoji, really?" He simply found the place where the hole was left on the old wall. With a tiptoe on it, Kuk easily let his body jump into the backyard. The sound of landing couldn't even be heard. According to the previous hardware store owner's words, Kuk found the home of the person who bought the crowbar without any difficulty. One of the prisoners lived alone, so Kuk climbed the wall directly. But he didn't find anyone here, but from some clues left behind, he found that someone should have stayed here a day ago. Not here. Did he really go to another place to heal? But Kuk wasn't sure that this person was the one who hurt him the most last night, so he had to go to the other 3 men's homes to see them one by one before making a decision. Therefore, he came quickly and left quickly, not leaving a single trace behind. Cuck began to feel more and more strange about himself. The technique of using the shoulder pole, the technique of climbing over the wall, and the pursuit, these seemed to be things that he had been accustomed to. Who am I? Vaguely, he once again felt that something was about to rush out of his mind, but he didn't know why. It was always a little bit away. That huge train of thought seemed to have been blocked. He suddenly touched the thing in his trouser pocket, the hair clip bought from the old woman's stall. To give or not to give seemed to become the convergence point between emotion and reason, and it was still in a deadlock. Time passed as he pondered and investigated. Very soon it was evening. Cuck inquired from the nearby neighbors about who this man usually gathered with, so he went to the homes of these men one by one. He got almost nothing. He only knew that 2 of them were not at home today, and 2 of them went out early in the morning. The only useful clue was that these 4 men were usually very close to Jean Couin, and they recognized Jean Couin as their big brother. He finally went to Jean Couin's home, but he didn't find anyone in the house. But at least I can lock on. Cuck even realized that a trace of terrifying murderous intent flashed in his eyes. At this time, there was an idea in his mind. The best solution to the trouble is to permanently erase it. Taking advantage of the night when there were few people, Cuck circled a few alleys outside San Air's house before turning to the door of the backyard of the tofu shop. He confirmed that there were no suspicious people nearby. He just wanted to see if anyone would come tonight. As he was thinking, Cuck suddenly frowned and stopped in front of the back door. He reached out and gently pushed the door panel. The door panel moved slightly. It was not locked. Cuck suddenly raised his head and rushed into the backyard like a cheetah. Several flower pots in the backyard fell to the ground, and there seemed to be traces of struggle, and a shoe that was taken off. Xiaoji's shoe. Cuck silently picked it up and squeezed it a little harder in his hand. A frightening cold light flashed in his eyes. He saw a line of words written in red paint on the wall of the courtyard. This was a mill outside the town, and there was an old and broken water wheel next to it. Jean Couin and his 2 underlings were looking at the 2 women who were tied up here. Jean Couin's eyes were full of haze, and no one knew what he was thinking at this time. "Boss, do you want to have some fun first?" The underling whispered in Jean Couin's ear at this time. "Let's go outside and keep a lookout for you. When that foreigner comes and sees that his woman has been defiled, he will explode with anger. Jean Couin's eyes suddenly became more terrifying and greedy at this time, and he suddenly said, "You 2 go out first." "Okay." The sound of the door opening and closing was heard. Her eyes were blindfolded, her hands were tied behind her back, and she was thrown to the ground. San Air was trembling in fear. Her daughter beside her was crying non-stop, calling for her mother. What do you want to do? Let me go. Let me go. Bastard, let go, beast." Jean Couin was like a vicious dog, directly pressing on San Air's body with a crazy face. "Why don't you like me? Why? I always let you be my woman. I never used force on you. But you ignored me. You went to hook up with the foreigner? You bitch. Bitch. Bitch." He pressed his hands on the neck of the woman he had always wanted. "I will kill you." Hiss, la. Mom. 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 Wah. Chapter 558. It's so ugly. Nero was wiping Yamato with a rag outside the mill. She put down her hand and raised Yamato, observing it. "Don't you think so, Yamato?" The blade glowed with a dark red luster. It seemed to agree with her. Nero smiled. "But there's no other way. Those who did not dare to defy fate could only submit to it. In that case, no matter how miserable the end is, people know that as long as they try a little, they don't know what to be afraid of." She closed her eyes, listening to the sorrowful cry from the small mill behind her. She was indifferent. Is that it? Cuck was not familiar with the terrain near the town, but when it came to the abandoned mill outside the town, almost everyone in the town knew where it was, so it did not take him much effort to find it. The sun had already set, but from a distance, he could see a faint light in the mill. It was probably a fire lamp or something like that. Two men were sitting not far away from the door of the mill. They were holding flashlights in their hands and were shining around. They were probably waiting for him to arrive. Cook picked up a small stone from the ground. His movement was as smooth as flowing water, like a wild cat lurking in the night. He quickly and silently approached the back of one of the men. He suddenly stood up and covered the man's mouth with one hand from behind. Then, he hit the man's temple with his fist. The man's eyes widened, and he lost consciousness in a moment. The man couldn't hold the flashlight in his hand firmly. When the flashlight fell to the ground, it attracted the attention of the other man. The other man subconsciously moved his flashlight over, but at this time, he only heard the sound of something knocking from the other side. He hurriedly shone the flashlight. But it was just a small stone thrown by Cook. The other man didn't notice that something was approaching him from behind in the dark. He only felt a heavy blow, a very, very heavy blow. Before his brain could react to the pain that appeared at the back of his head, his sensory nerve endings had already been cut off, and he also fell to the ground. In less than 5 seconds, Cook had already dealt with the two gatekeepers. He increasingly felt that he was definitely not an ordinary person, but at this moment, he could not continue to think about this problem. He walked towards the mill, intending to peek inside through the closed window. Unexpectedly, the wooden door of the mill suddenly opened, and Zhang Kuan's voice could be heard. "Rascal, give me some water. I'm so thirsty." The Zhang Kuan in front of him was topless and drenched in sweat. Furthermore, he was currently fastening the belt around his waist. He looked somewhat exhausted, but Zhang Kuan's eyes immediately widened. He saw Cook. This foreign man was like an evil spirit, quietly appearing in front of him in the dark night. That was the most terrifying gaze he had ever seen in his life. Zhang Kuan suddenly shivered. "Shameless! Where are you guys?" He even subconsciously took a step back, but he was not faster than Cook's movements and his iron-like fist. This punch, without any hesitation, directly bombarded Zhang Kuan's chest like a cannonball. Even if this guy was full of fat, he couldn't cushion this huge impact. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt like they were being overturned. Zhang Kuan even heard the sound of his sternum breaking. Bang! His entire body flew backwards and slammed into the wooden pillar of the mill, nearly breaking the pillar in half. This was a wooden pillar thicker than an adult male's thigh. But Cook didn't have the slightest joy of hitting Zhang Kuan. He just stood outside the door of the mill, trembling slightly. Inside the door, in the corner of the mill, the little girl, Xiaoji, was blindfolded and tied to the ground with a cloth. Beside her, San Er was looking up absent-mindedly at this time. The scattered hair couldn't hide the desperate look on San Er's face. She just hugged her body tightly and grasped the tattered clothes with both hands. On his arms, shoulders, and exposed legs, bruises and bruises could be seen everywhere. A threshold seemed to separate two worlds. San Er. Cook called this name for the first time. He subconsciously stepped over the threshold and walked forward. "Don't come over!" San Er suddenly shouted. She held her head tightly with both hands, and her body trembled even more. She screamed, "Don't come over! Don't come over! Don't look at me! Don't look at me!" San Er. Cook rushed in front of San Er and hugged her tightly with both arms. San Er leaned on Cook's shoulder and cried loudly. Her fists kept hitting the man's strong body. "Why did you come so late? Why did you come so late?" "Sorry, sorry, sorry." San Er suddenly stopped and said softly and sadly, "Mark, I don't want to remember. I don't want to remember this beast. I don't want to remember it even more. I want to remember it in front of Xiaoji. Mark, do you know, it's okay, it's okay." Cook hugged her more tightly. "It's not the same. I'm not the same as you." San Er gradually lost her mind. "It's not the same. Mark, help me take good care of Xiaoji, okay? I'm so tired, so tired." San Air. San Air? Cook only felt San Air's body trembling in his arms. San Air. This woman's abdomen was now covered in bright red. She was holding a piece of firewood in both hands. The sharp firewood head turned it into a sharp spike. San Air. Cook's eyes suddenly turned red, and his head felt like it was going to explode. He covered his head with one hand and held San Air's body with the other. He knelt on the ground and his mouth almost cracked open. He couldn't make a sound. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind attacked him. Instinctively, Cook waved his hand to block it, but the force of the impact was too strong, and his body was knocked away. It was just that the strength of his body was completely beyond his imagination. Under this kind of impact, he didn't even stop, but turned over at a very fast speed. In front of him was a guy in a coat. It was definitely not a guy that Zhang Kun could compare with. Cook instinctively felt that his body was on guard against this guy. But the weird man in a coat, hat and mask looked at San Air, who fell on the ground and shook his head. Is it really such a predictable ending? I thought it would be different, that you would be stronger. You ordered them to do it? Cook's voice became cold, like ice. That's right. The weirdo shrugged and said, Aren't you touched? I didn't expect this woman to be so chaste. She felt sorry for you, so she killed herself. By the way, how does it feel to have a woman who treats you like this? You seem to be indifferent? Cook said indifferently, No, I want to kill you, but I won't let you irritate me. If I lose my cool, it's not good for me. Even if I really want to kill you, I won't lose my cool. The weird man was slightly stunned and suddenly sighed. Although I expected this kind of result, I still feel like a failure when I see it. It seems that your heart is really dead. Forget it. The weird man shrugged and suddenly said, In this case, it's useless to keep this little guy, right? The weird man turned his palm, and a cold light broke through the window and drilled into the weird man's palm. Then, it suddenly cut toward Xiaoji on the ground. But the cold light just swept across the floor, at the place where Xiaoji was originally lying. At the same time, Cook had already held Xiaoji and rolled on the ground for a few times, and then quickly stood up. He had to save Xiaoji from the weird man. Because of this, his left arm was left with a wound so deep that the bone could be seen. Xiaoji. Xiaoji in his arms whispered, Uncle Mark, where's Mom? She's fine. Uncle Mark. Let's go home. Xiaoji is scared. Xiaoji hurts. Cook stretched out his hand and touched Xiaoji's back gently, and it was blood red. Oh, I seem to have cut it. The weird man laughed twice. But Cook couldn't hear it. He didn't want to hear it. Calmness was leaving his body, and something hot was surging in his dead heart. Xiaoji. Uncle Mark. Xiaoji can't see. It's so dark. Let me tell you. Mom must like you. Uncle Mark. Xiaoji became weaker. Can you be Xiaoji's dad? The little girl in his arms finally lost her breath. Cook hugged her body and knelt on the ground. He lowered his head and remained motionless. It had been a long time, but Cook still remained motionless. The weird man standing not far away. Nero scratched her cheeks subconsciously at this time, muttering, Did I go too far? Suddenly, a hot reaction came from the Yamato in her hand. Nero stared at it. Her eyes suddenly showed a hint of excitement, and she muttered to herself, It's coming, finally. Wisps of black gas, like smoke rising from the bonfire, came out from Cook's body at this time. These black gas became stronger and stronger, and Cook just gently put down Xiaoji's body at this time, and stood up silently. He looked at the person in front of him silently, and after a while, he said indifferently, Nero, you went too far. Oh, you're back. Nero reached out and tore the disguise on her body, and waved the Yamato in her hand. Finally, I didn't waste my efforts. It's unnecessary. Cook was expressionless, and his tone was indifferent. I can recover by myself. You don't have to meddle. I'm bored. Nero blinked her eyes. But the pores all over her body were opened at this time, and her body suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of oppression. Her heartbeat was even beating wildly. Under the mixture of panic, fear, and excitement, her body and spirit were excited to a critical point. This man, whose appearance and heart were extremely indifferent, had never had such a murderous intention before. Cook nodded. "Did the club send you here? After all, you've been missing for so long. Of course, those old bastards have some ideas." Nero smiled. "I'll go back." Cook nodded indifferently, and then said indifferently, "After I get rid of you." As he said, he suddenly stretched out his right hand. The black gas wrapped around him directly rolled his arm like countless crazy tongues. Cook's 5 fingers suddenly opened. This time, he was not calm. He was like a volcano that had been sleeping at the bottom of the sea for thousands of years. In the countless undercurrents, he erupted silently. It was a hissing sound. Gibalg. In the lively and fanatical Elysium bar, Sun Shaoxing, who was immersed in this kind of drunken atmosphere, was having fun on the stage. Unexpectedly, the black stick that he was using to shake his body suddenly emitted a heat comparable to magma. In an instant, it shot out from between his fingers and pierced through the ceiling of the Elysium world, disappearing into the night sky. "Brother Shaoxing! Brother Shaoxing!" The demons were frightened, and they all gathered around. They saw the bar owner covering his lower body at this time. His face was painful, and he was rolling on the ground while foaming at the mouth. The blood-red spear directly tore the space and appeared beside Cook. When his 5 fingers grasped the spear tightly, a feeling of joy suddenly spread to Cook's mind. But as if it felt the sadness and anger in its master's heart at this moment, the spear instantly withdrew the joy and erupted with a huge force. That power destroyed the entire upper layer of the mill in an instant, and everything turned into dust. Nero suddenly held her Yama blade with both hands. Her white hair scattered, revealing a ferocious look. She laughed loudly. It's coming, ha 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 ha! It's finally here!" From the Yama blade, there was also a huge force that could compete with it. The 2 powerful forces blew the rest of the mill apart in an instant. But Cook quietly stood in front of the corpses of San Er and Xiaoji. Behind him, no matter how violent the power was, this place was always as calm as a Qintian harbor. "You will be distracted, Cook." Nero was exhausting all her strength to activate the power of Yama blade. "Shoot. Dead thorn piercing," Cook said coldly and softly. Gibalg in his hand suddenly disappeared. But only for a moment, it appeared in his palm again. Nero suddenly stopped moving. The violent power from Yama blade suddenly lost its support and scattered crazily, turning into a ring-shaped airflow that flattened everything around. Nero subconsciously reached out and covered her heart. She glanced at Cook and seemed to be enlightened. "I see. No wonder no one among the divine generals dares to provoke you. I see." A mouthful of strong blood suddenly came out of her mouth and kept flowing out like a spring. Nero grabbed the hilt of Yama blade with both hands and stabbed it into the soil. She suddenly let out a shrill scream. Countless golden lights shot out crazily from her body at this moment. A destructive force broke out from her body and turned into a sharp blade, piercing all her internal organs from the inside out. In the end, she knelt in front of Yama blade, leaning on the hilt, and only said one sentence, "I lost." Then she fell directly into a pool of blood. Cook took a deep breath, looked up at the night sky, and slowly exhaled. He walked to Nero expressionlessly and flipped Nero's body with his spear. The spearhead opened Nero's clothes and picked out the things hidden here one by one, including the life-saving medicine that the divine generals were equipped with every time they were dispatched. He reached out to grab Yama blade. Since the divine generals were dead, Yama blade naturally needed to be recovered. Yama blade, which had lost its owner, suddenly became rusty at this time. After casually putting away Yama blade, Cook held the corpses of San Er and Xiaoji and set a fire here. After seeing the corpses here were burned, Cook left silently. Chapter 559. In the end, I killed Nero. Cuck was communicating with the club with the communication equipment he got from Nero. The other side remained silent and listened to Cuck's report. After a long time, a voice came from the other side. The tyrant has always been difficult to control, but for such a long time, only Nero can inherit Yama. But this matter is also her own fault. Since she successfully angered you, she should bear the consequences of death herself. Well, as long as Yama has been recovered. Cuck, since the mission in the east has failed, you should come back immediately. I see. Cuck responded indifferently. His treasured spear and rusty Yamato were placed on the table. After Cook turned off the communication, he put the communication device together with the other one. He brought a basin of warm water and wrung the towel dry after it was soaked. San Er and Xiaoji were placed on the chair at this moment. He wiped the traces of San Er's face with the towel and also wiped Xiaoji's face. This man's pain was undoubtedly exposed in his movements, because he was so gentle. He, who recovered his memory, was quite clear about this. He didn't love this woman. The only person who had abnormal feelings for San Er was a person named Mark. My original name was Cuck. After tidying up the bodies of San Er and Xiaoji to make them look like they were asleep, Cuck sat next to them and began to wipe his spear. When I was 3 years old, someone told me that I was a resident of the Shadow Kingdom. Cuck squinted one eye, calmly raised the spear head to the level of his sight, and then wiped it gently. But where is the Shadow Kingdom? I never knew. Later, a woman took me to the snowy peak, and trained me there. When I was about 10 years old, I killed a bear on the snowy peak with my own hands. He said something that he had never told others, a memory that only belonged to him. I lived with her like this for 15 years. This woman is my teacher. Cuck smiled faintly and continued to wipe the spear. In my opinion, she is not only my teacher, but also a woman who is extremely important to me. It's not love, but I can't live without her. It's called Gibalg. It's the only thing she gave me. I've been looking for her all these years. Cuck took a deep breath and was silent for a long time. Then, he sighed softly and said indifferently, "That's good too. Let Mark stay here with you forever." In conclusion, I'm not a very lucky person. He sat there quietly. After a while, he stood up and packed up his guns, knives, and some other equipment. He had always been like a traveler. Since they were travelers, they would naturally leave after a short stay. Cuck remembered that the woman who had given him everything had said that he should stop chasing after her figure, because one day, he would meet something worthy of his nostalgia. But it will also be destroyed, won't it, teacher? Cook smiled sadly. After packing up his things, he took one last look at the mother and daughter on the chair, opened the door of the living room, and left. Turn on the lights first. You'll get hit. Xiaoji. However, I know, Mom. When the light pipe in the shop suddenly lit up, Cuck's whole body became stiff. Was it a dream? Uncle Mark. You're back. The little girl quickly kicked off her shoes in the front of the shop and rushed up to Cuck's side. Was it a dream? You're back. Are you hungry? Shall I make you something to eat? San Er's expression was still a little uneasy, but she asked softly. Was it a dream? Cuck subconsciously looked back at the living room. On the chair, he didn't know when, but there was only a pile of sand left. Uncle Mark, why is there so much sand at home? Xiaoji pulled Cuck's trousers at this time and raised her head to ask. It's true. San Er was surprised to see that the chairs in the living room were covered with sand at this time. She looked puzzled. Did you bring it back? What happened? Cuck muttered to himself. San Er said, we went to the police station, and then Xiaoji suddenly had a stomachache. Later, we went to the health station to get some medicine and an injection. She said that her stomach was uncomfortable, so we just came back. Police station? When? Cuck frowned. San Er thought, well, not long after you went out in the afternoon, right? A policeman came over and knocked on the door, asking me to go back to assist in the investigation. It seems that someone wrote with paint yesterday. I don't know who called the police. The policeman asked me to go to the police station to make a statement. I was worried about Xiaoji alone, so I took her with me. But when did such a young policeman come to our town? I didn't know before. Xiaoji hasn't seen him either. Xiaoji raised her small hand like a student answering a teacher's question at this time, but the policeman brother smells so good. It smells better than the perfume Mom hides in the cabinet. Xiaoji. San Er suddenly patted her daughter's forehead gently, and then said fiercely, "Go warm the water, you have to take medicine. Do you want a stomachache in the middle of the night?" Got it. Xiaoji ran into the living room. San Er looked at Mark at this time, her face was slightly red, and she whispered, "What are these on you?" Cuck took a deep breath and said indifferently, "Your matter is solved. I'm a little tired. If there's anything, let's talk about it tomorrow." Then the meal, no need. It was not a dream. It was unknown when the fire in the mill stopped. Many things were burned here, but after all, it was just by the river, so the fire naturally couldn't spread all the way. There were only some burnt things left in the original mill. Some were the original wood of the mill, and some were just human bodies. Boss Luo walked through the ashes, stopped in front of a burnt body, and snapped his fingers slightly. At this moment, the charred corpse suddenly cracked open. After a layer of charred skin cracked open, a trace of smoothness could be seen. Then, it completely cracked open. A figure sat up from the charred corpse. He stretched lazily, but there was not a single thread of clothing on him. I really thought I was going to die. Nero in front of Boss Luo sat on the ground even though she was naked at this time. She stretched out her hand and twisted her neck, and said with a smile, "After the mother and daughter returned home, did Cuck cry?" Boss Luo shook his head. Nero suddenly sighed in disappointment. She said gloomily as if she had been hit hard, "Not only did I lose, but I couldn't even earn 2 drops of Uncle Cuck's tears. What a failure." Boss Luo said nothing. Nero didn't blame him, so she stretched and lay on the ground with her arms and legs spread out. She said to herself, with Uncle Cuck's character, "He probably reported that I have died. Then I don't have to go back to that suffocating place. Well, it's not bad." She sat up again and asked, "Isn't the moon beautiful tonight, boss?" Luochio looked up and whispered, "Full moon." Nero suddenly blinked and said, "Boss? Are you really not going to get me a set of clothes? Or do you like me more like this? I don't mind, but I also charge, okay? And it's very expensive." Luochio waved his hand, and a set of clothes like Nero's fell from the air and landed in front of the body with countless scars. These were old scars that were as dense as a spider web, making people feel hideous. Thank you. Chapter 560. Nero found that her boss was very meticulous. At least when she touched her bag, she could still find the gum that she was used to eating. After unwrapping the package and chewing the gum, Nero closed her eyes and spread out her right palm. A red airflow came out of her palm. At the same time, some fine particles began to appear on the ground where her palm was facing. These were traces of iron elements hidden in the riverbed. Soon after, these iron elements began to gather, elongate, change, and finally turned into the original shape of Yamato. Nero picked up the whole blade and waved her hand. She seemed to be satisfied. Luochio looked at her curiously. Nero shook the Yamato in her hand and said proudly, "People in the club think that I have just reached the first state. In fact, I am not. From the second state, Yamato is no longer limited by its appearance. What Uncle Cook took away was just an empty shell. But what the club wants to know is that they have failed to find a successor for at least 10 times. And they may not know it." But Boss Luo just shook his head. Instead, he looked at the black thing that Nero had made while condensing the blade. "This." Nero was stunned, then she squatted down and began to dig the mixture of coke and soil nearby and attached it to the black thing. Uncle Cook is very careful. Maybe during the day, He will come to see if the number of corpses is enough. If he finds that one of them is missing, I will take it. Nero shook her head and said, If we meet Uncle Cook in that state in the future, it's better not to provoke him. You are also very careful, Luocchio praised. After finishing the arrangement, Nero patted the stains on her hands, then ran away and dug out a box under a tree. Inside the box was the soul box that Boss Luo had given her to keep, the small disc used to chase the iron whistle, and a small bag. I knew Uncle Cook would definitely take my things. Fortunately, I hid them early on. She opened the box used to store souls and grabbed the remaining souls inside. Then she hurriedly ran to Luocchio. This is the fake San Ers, this is the fake Xiaojis, these are the healing souls. They are all used up. Luocchio said indifferently, Actually, you don't have to ask me to heal you. The second form of Yamato means that you won't die. Nero shook her head and said, But I'm not interested in lying in this wilderness for a few months. I have to leave here as soon as possible. Moreover, we can't leave any traces that Uncle Cook will find. Oh, right, I seem to be able to get a discount, right? Are there any leftovers? Nero suddenly looked at Luocchio and asked. It's just a small matter. Does Miss Nero also plan to use the discount? Luocchio said indifferently. Yes, is there a problem? Nero said curiously, The discount is in my hands. I'm free to use it however I want, right? Besides, if I use up the discount earlier, won't it be more convenient for you to exploit me? Luocchio didn't intend to talk wittily with this woman. He said softly, Customer, this is the leftovers. He also gave Nero a soul light ball. Nero shook her head and said, Just use this to buy some good luck, and give it to the mother and daughter. Luocchio said softly, Miss Nero is really considerate. Nero stared at him with dissatisfaction and said, Don't look at me like this. I'm also a woman, okay? Forget it, in fact, I can't talk to you at all. That's it, powerful boss. I'm leaving. Next time when I have nowhere to go, I will come to you again, by. It was another worthless flying kiss for the boss. In this way, the tyrant of Michael Club successfully faked his death, and left the club temporarily. Cuck, who was sitting quietly in the room, slowly opened his eyes at about this time yesterday. At this time, thinking of the strange feeling that happened to him last night, Cuck already understood what happened. It's good to leave here, so as not to cause trouble for me in the future, Cuck muttered, and at the same time, he tilted his head and looked at the door of the room. Even before he recovered, as Mark, he had instinctive vigilance, let alone at this time. The footsteps coming step by step naturally couldn't escape his ears. The footsteps stopped in front of his door for a while, then there were a few small knocks on the door and San Air's voice, Mark, are you asleep? Cuck was silent for a while before saying indifferently, What's the matter? San Air, who originally thought that she wouldn't get a response, was about to leave in disappointment. But at this time, she turned her head and approached the door again, saying softly, Are you leaving tomorrow? Will you leave after breakfast? I will leave before dawn. You have recovered your memory, right? When you came back, you gave me a different feeling, San Air whispered against the door. It was really different. Whether it was his expression or her own feeling, it was already different. San Air keenly caught something. After thinking about it, she finally plucked up the courage and said, Mark, do you want to stay? There was no response in the room for a long time. San Air probably knew that was the answer. She leaned against the door and sat down, hugging her legs. She didn't know whether the man who broke into her life was sitting or leaning against the door, let alone what he was thinking at this time. After a long time, San Air looked up and whispered, Xiaoji will probably be very sad. Cuck's voice came, Children will soon forget people and things. San Air suddenly tilted her head and asked, What about adults? Cuck touched the door with his palm across the door and said indifferently, After a long time, adults will be the same. San Air smiled sadly. After a while she said, Yes, if I don't look at the photos, I will almost forget my husband's appearance. Cuck didn't speak. San Er thought about what happened during this time, from Xiaoji finding this man in the river to him living in her home. She began to feel that it was good to have a man at home, when she was sick, when she had no one to rely on. There were all kinds of times. Even though there were more and more idle chatter, laughter that hadn't been heard for a long time still came to this small tofu shop. It seems that a lot of things have happened. It's like a dream. San Er smiled. She remembered some embarrassing things in the past. Cuck responded. For him, what happened to Mark was also an experience that he couldn't let go of for the time being. In the past, I never thought that so many things would happen to me. San Er held her face at this time and said, I got married very early, had a child, and had a good husband. Later, my husband died and I just wanted to raise the child. Do you know? Sometimes I think that after more than 10 years, am I going to be like the aunties next door, anxious about my daughter's marriage again? More than 10 years? It's too early. Cuck said indifferently. Too early. San Er was stunned, and then she giggled. What are you laughing at? Cuck frowned. San Er seemed to laugh more fiercely, and her eyes were misty. I just want to laugh, can't I? It's up to you. Cuck said indifferently. Mark, are you always so cold? Because there is nothing to laugh at. Cuck also sat down against the door, and his back was also against the door. He did this subconsciously. Don't tell me that you can't encounter happy things all the time? Is there a problem? No, I just feel that it's too pitiful. San Er shook her head. Even I had a lot of happy things in the past. I really miss the time when I was still in high school. By the way, do you know that once in high school, several naughty boys in the class secretly stuffed a small yellow disc in the Chinese teacher's textbook. Later, the teacher's wife found out, and I heard that they didn't sleep well that night. The next day in class, those boys were directly punished to run laps on the playground, and they said, I won't look at yellow discs in the future. We were all watching it, and it was so funny. Why didn't you react? Cuck said, What's so funny? San Er asked, Isn't it funny? San Er thought for a while. Then there is one more time. This time, you will definitely want to laugh. Let me tell you. The woman outside the door was talking about the things that she cherished in her youth. The man sat quietly inside the door and listened. He never laughed, but shook his head, and sometimes made a few simple comments. Isn't this funny? San Er asked the same question tirelessly. If it's not funny, won't you tell the teacher directly? How about this? So, for a long time, San Er unconsciously leaned against the door and fell asleep. The light in the room suddenly turned on, and then there was a slight continuous sound. Slowly it was dawn. Later, San Er woke up because of the cool morning air. She stood up and silently opened the door to the room. The room was already empty and empty. San Er gently held her arms with both hands, looking at the neatly folded quilt as if it had never been used, and the clothes that were folded on the quilt, and then walked towards the only table here. A lifelike wooden swan that was slightly bigger than a palm was placed here. The basket under the table was filled with wood shavings that had been poured in after the cleaning. San Er reached out and nodded on the wooden swan, then opened the curtains of the room and opened the glass window. The air outside was colder. She leaned against the window, watching the sun begin to rise as usual, and smiled slightly. Chapter 561. Life still had to go on, and it was a bit unpleasant. The business of the tofu shop was not as good as before. Xiaoji made a fuss for a long time, crying and making a fuss. She had just calmed down, but she became more clingy to her mother. Even if she didn't stay close to her mother, it was close. It was said that several people disappeared in the town all of a sudden, the big villain Zhang Kuan and a few punks he brought. A few days ago there was a fire outside the town. It was said that several people were burned to death. The topic of San Er suddenly turned to this matter. It showed that people were still good at forgetting. Mom! We have a customer. Xiaoji, who was reading a fairy tale book in front of the shop, shouted loudly. San quickly put down the things in her hand, walked out while wiping her hand. She smiled and greeted the customer. What do you want to buy? The young man with a strange face didn't look like a person from the town. But he didn't carry anything with him, so he didn't look like a tourist. However, wasn't this young man a bit similar to the young policeman from before? San suddenly became a little absent-minded. The young man said, "Can I buy 2 pieces of tofu?" "Oh, okay. Wait, I'll give it to you right away." San came back to her senses and secretly blamed herself for being absent-minded. She quickly cut 2 pieces and then wrapped them with bamboo leaves. "The quality of this tofu is very good." The young man smiled and said, "If there is a need, I will come back to buy it again." San was stunned, but at this time, she said a little regretfully, "I'm sorry, you may be disappointed. When you come again, you may not be able to buy it." The young man asked curiously, "Why? Are you not going to do business here?" San smiled slightly and looked at a pile of 2 wooden swans, one big and one small, placed together on the table behind. She nodded. "I won't do business here for the time being. I plan to go to the city to have a look. Maybe I'll open a small shop there. I'm not sure. Let's talk about it later." The young man looked at the old house and suddenly said, "Won't you be reluctant to part with it?" "I'm a little reluctant, but I'm not going to sell it. Actually, I've been saving some money all these years, but I didn't dare to do anything with it." San didn't realize that she had unknowingly revealed her thoughts to others. She also looked around. "However, recently, well, actually, I also want to go out and see what the outside world is like. I just don't know if this child can adapt. Xiaoji knows how to cook. She even knows how to wash clothes. It's the same no matter where you go." The child rushed to his mother's side. The young man gave his blessing softly. "I wish you all good luck." San was stunned and nodded. "Thank you. I'll give you 2 more later." Thus, the young man had another piece of tofu wrapped in a leaf in his hand. He looked at the mother and daughter and said softly, "Right, this pair of wooden swans is really beautiful. You have to cherish them." San was startled and felt that this young man was a little strange. She followed the young man's back and walked out of her shop, but she couldn't see the young man's back anymore. At this time, Xiaoji moved a stool, took down the 2 wooden swans on the table, and held them on her body. "Mom, you have to cherish them. Xiaoji will take them and wipe them clean." "Didn't you just wipe them?" San said angrily. Xiaoji didn't care. She took the 2 wooden swans and ran away. When she ran, she shook her hands, and one of the bigger wooden swans seemed to make a slight knocking sound. From the inside of it, there was probably some kind of little toy hidden inside. San smiled and took a deep breath. The motorcycle quietly moved up the muddy mountain road. The driver had a worried look on his face, while the other man sitting behind him had a bandage around his shoulder. His arm was in a sling and his face was pale. "Can't you take a better road? Don't be picky at this time. The one who burned to death in the mill must be the boss. I don't know who he offended, and whether he will provoke us. Let's pack up and run away quickly. I've already contacted them. Let's temporarily stay at a cousin's house in the city for a while. We'll decide what to do after we've hidden for a while. But slow down, I'm in pain. In front, in front. Look in front." The man in the back suddenly shouted. "What's in front?" "Someone." It was difficult for the motorcycle to go on such a narrow mountain road, let alone people. But at this time, there was still someone standing on the path, blocking the way of the 2 brothers. It was a white-haired woman who was chewing gum. "Go away!" The man on the motorcycle shouted loudly. The woman waved her hand. A cold light flashed, and 2 heads fell to the ground. The motorcycle that lost control rushed into the ravine. "Scum! I don't want to keep them?" the woman muttered. Then the woman's face suddenly changed and she scolded, "Hey, don't eat it, this is my pocket money for buying things. Yama knife." You shameless thing! Give it back to me! So much tofu, master. The servant girl looked curiously at the 2-leaf tofu in Boss Luo's hand. Shall we eat this for lunch today? Luochio picked it up and shook it, like a fisherman who just came back from the river with a harvest. Okay. Well, can I make mapo tofu? The servant girl asked. Let me help you. Luochio rolled up his sleeves and walked into the kitchen. Earlier, about 1 or 2 days ago, another mysterious place in the city was actually the pet hospital of Kelowna Shinryu. On the street outside the door, a child pointed at a figure. Mom, there's a weirdo there. Shoo, don't look, let's go. It was a weirdo who was wearing a yellow windbreaker, a big hat, and a pair of sunglasses. He walked with a limp and held a newspaper to block himself. This figure didn't enter the hospital from the front. The front door of the hospital hadn't been opened for a few days, and the red paper that temporarily closed the business was still posted. The weirdo came to the back door of the hospital and turned the door lock, but it was still locked. But it didn't seem to stop the weirdo's pace. I heard that old dragon went somewhere and the back door was closed. Wizardry barrier? How can it stop me? The strange man easily opened the door and quietly sneaked in. After that, he sneaked into a room and began to rummage through the contents of the room as if he was looking for something. Who is it? There was a sudden shout. The weirdo who felt guilty suddenly turned around and said subconsciously, Lord Long, I'm not here to steal. Sun Shaoxing? Who are you? It was a completely different question. 2 figures, one big and one small, were looking at each other at this time. One was Kelowna Shinryu, who saw Sun Shaoxing sneak in from the monitoring room. He was so angry that he forgot his current appearance and directly rushed out. The other was the owner of the Elysium Bar, who had a strange purpose but was scared by a little girl. I'm Chichi Kamaya's new apprentice, Long Shirua said calmly. Sun Shaoxing was stunned. Does that old tortoise have such an interest? I can't see it. No, you're the old tortoise's apprentice. Why do you look like a human? It's none of your business. Long Shirua snorted coldly. What are you doing here secretly? Brother Shaoxing suddenly put his hands on his waist and said fiercely, What I'm doing here is none of your business. Do you know who I am? I'm Sun Shaoxing. Chichi Kamaya doesn't dare to kill me. Who are you? Little thing, aren't you afraid of death? Brother Shaoxing danced and finally, he grabbed his neck with both hands and made a blackmailing ghost, Kacha die. Su Zijuan is my aunt. Long Shirua might have difficulty dealing with anyone, but it was easy to deal with this monkey of unknown origin. F***CK. Brother Shaoxing's eyes blinked quickly a few times. Ah ha ha ha, really? Then, little guy. No, little girl, you see, I, Sun Shaoxing, am a good existence in the entire demon beast realm. I definitely didn't steal anything. Don't misunderstand me. Then what are you doing here? This. Brother Shaoxing shook his head, suddenly pointed his finger out of the window, and suddenly shouted, Ha! There's a pervert who wears underwear outside. But Long Shirua looked at this stupid monkey with an expression of looking at a retard. Brother Shaoxing pretended that he didn't see anything. He ran out quickly against the wall with cold sweat, running faster than the wind. Psycho. Long Shirua looked at this guy's strange walking posture and shook her head. If it wasn't for the fact that her strength was useless now, she would really catch this stupid monkey and teach him a lesson. She sighed and helplessly began to clean up the messy storage warehouse that was messed up by this stupid monkey. This stupid monkey, what did he steal? Chapter 562. The total length is 223 meters, the hull width is 29 meters, the maximum width capacity is 47,500 tons, and the maximum sailing speed is 19.3 nautical miles per hour. There are 739 cabins on board, and the maximum capacity is 1,897 passengers. Bayou cruise ship. The sound of the ship's whistle was unusually loud, like a war song. The tourists were boarding the cruise ship in an orderly manner. Luoqiu frowned and looked behind him. The people behind him were clearly carrying luggage bags with both hands, and there were bigger bags hanging in front and behind them. Officer Ma and Ma Hao's wife. At this time, Ren Xiling, Li Zi, and Yu Yi walked over from the crowd. Subeditor Ren shook the things in her hand. The procedures are done. Let's log in, then let's start. Our golden week. Our sea trip. Why did they come to this place? Luoqiu felt incredible, back to 2 days ago. When Boss Luo was watching TV at home, Ren Xiling, who unexpectedly didn't return home with a defeated look, kicked off her shoes at the door as usual and sat on the sofa. Boss Luo, who felt that something was wrong, instinctively stood up and planned to go back to the room to rest, but his body was pulled back abruptly. Subeditor Ren, who had a dark and evil aura, put one hand on Luoqiu's shoulder and sneered. "Kid, I heard that you don't have to go to school recently. You have been on vacation. Are you very free? Then, do you want to have a 3-day and 2-night sea trip?" "No. I don't wash the dishes after eating. I throw the clothes on the sofa if they aren't folded. Tonight I will watch TV in the living room until dawn. When I brush my teeth, I will squeeze the toothpaste from the middle of Bayou cruise ship. I really miss it." Ma Hao looked up at the cruise ship at the boarding gate at this time. Luoqiu, who was walking with Officer Ma at the back of the team, smiled and said, "Uncle Ma, have you sat on it before? I remember that you seemed to have gone to sea with your aunt during the summer vacation." "It wasn't this ship last time." Ma Hao shook his head and then smiled. "Do you know? This Bayou cruise ship is the first cruise ship here. I sat on it when I was young. Not only me, but your father also sat on it before. This time, Xiling. I didn't expect her to get a ticket for the Bayou cruise ship. I heard that this is the last trip. It's the last trip. So, Luo Bayou cruise ship, Bayou 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 Bye Besides, your aunt also wants to see what your girlfriend looks like." As he spoke, Ma Hao patted Luoqiu's shoulder, and then secretly gave Luoqiu 2 small bottles. He said earnestly, "This is good stuff. Pure Chinese medicine ingredients. I also rely on it. Do your best, little Luoqiu." Boss Luo looked at the 2 small bottles in his hand. "Medical drinks for replenishing stamina. Old Ma, what are you waiting for? Come on up." In front of them, Sir Ma's wife turned around and shouted, "Right away, right away!" Sir Ma picked up his things and hurriedly chased after him. The servant girl came to her master's side and smiled. "Master, let's get on the boat too. Miss Rin is urging us." Luoqiu nodded and walked forward with a smile. However, he waved his hand behind his back and quietly threw the 2 bottles in his hand into the river. Who would use this kind of thing? But after 2 steps, Luoqiu stopped and looked up at the front left. Far away from him, probably the bow deck. 2 men seemed to be struggling with something. Judging from their clothes, they seemed to be the senior managers of the cruise ship, and an old man and a middle-aged man. Both of them seemed to be trying their best to restrain themselves. Although they looked a little excited, at least they didn't make a move. After a while, the middle-aged man shook his head and left. The old man watched him leave. After a while, he suddenly grasped his clothes and showed a painful expression. It seemed that he had a heart disease. The old man hurriedly took out a small bottle from his clothes. Then, he poured a few pills into his palm and directly swallowed them. His breathing seemed to gradually calm down. He held the railing on the deck and looked at the front of the bow quietly. "Luoqiu, why are you in a daze? Don't tell me you want to escape." Ren Xiling, who had already boarded the ship, shouted from the passage at this time. Boss Luo shook his head and walked up. After boarding the ship, everyone found their respective rooms to put their luggage. There were 3 rooms for 6 people. Before boarding the ship, Luaccio had already foreseen this arrangement, so he didn't bother to say anything. He directly pulled Yuyi into the room. This room is clean. Miss Maid looked around the room. For Miss Maid, who was a bit obsessed with cleanliness, this was already a good compliment. Luaccio looked out from the small window of the room and smiled slightly. He stretched out his fingers and touched the windowsill gently. After rubbing his fingers, he said, "This ship has been sailing for almost 30 years. It's really good that it can be maintained like this. It seems that there is a group of good crew members." Miss Maid came over and was about to take off her master's coat. Luaccio suddenly said, "It's rare to come up here. Anyway, you have nothing to do. Accompany me to take a walk on the ship." "But what about Miss Ren?" Luaccio said indifferently. "She's probably thinking about something strange again. Don't worry about her. Let's go to the deck and have a look. Maybe we'll get some good business." "Sister Ren, no matter how you listen, you won't be able to hear anything. This kind of cabin has good sound insulation," Lizzie reminded her at this time. Just after entering the room, Renziling put her ear on the wall without taking off her shoes. After hearing Lizzie's reminder, Subeditor Ren sighed as if she had given up. Renziling sat cross-legged on the bed, then looked at Lizzie with a smile and asked, "Lizzie, did you bring the thing? If I said I left it at home, would you throw me to wear it?" Lizzie blinked and said. Renziling laughed and patted Lizzie's shoulder. "How could I? Do I look like that kind of person? At most, I'll lock you in the room and feed you 3 meals a day. Don't worry." "That's the cruelest thing." Lizzie suddenly lowered her head and looked for something in the luggage bag quickly. Soon after, Lizzie took out a small plastic box and handed it to Renziling. "This is the secret prescription handed down in your family." Renziling shook it a few times. 2 dark balls inside collided with each other and made a little sound. "Is it really effective? Will there be any side effects? Will it be bad for the body?" "I've already reduced the dosage. Humans should be able to bear it," Lizzie said casually. "Human?" Renziling was stunned. Lizzie laughed and said, "I mean the dosage for normal people. This kind of medicine is normal for pandas. Besides, this is a medicine to enhance physical strength. Even if it doesn't work, it's similar to healthcare products. Nothing will happen." Lizzie patted her chest and said, "If there's any problem, I'll starve myself for 3 days." Seeing that Lizzie dared to guarantee with such a cruel condition, Renziling nodded. "Well, it's good to enhance physical strength. If it doesn't work, it's better to do it a few more times. It's safer." Lizzie had already torn a piece of shellfish and chewed it. Looking at Renziling, who was like an old witch who had just decocted some strange medicine, she couldn't help but sigh secretly.